At the edge of a cliff, where the wind howled, a dilapidated thatched hut could be seen. Outside of the hut, in a pool of blood, laid an awfully disheveled and small human figure. Pain, piercing pain tore through Wu Feng's body, making her feel as though she was being hacked at by a myriad of knives, and she found it difficult to breathe. Ascribed to her instincts as an assassin, her eyes shot open the instant she regained consciousness. Her hands pushed down against the ground, striving to turn her body over so she could jump back on her feet. But those actions only served to once again consume her body in pain. By the time she realized she couldn't move her hands nor feet, her slightly arched body had already fallen back into the pool of blood. Her breathing quickened. Turning her head, she did a quick scan of her surroundings and came to the conclusion that she was located on a deserted cliffside. All around her were clusters of debris and weeds. That confused her even more. Had she survived the lethal poison needle bomb? She began to rifle through her memories and paused when she recalled the betrayals of her two most trusted and loved confidants. In that memory was where she pierced her heart with a poison needle, activating the bomb within her body and thinking that if she had to die, she would drag that dog couple into the grave with her. Suddenly, an outburst of prickling pain assaulted her mind. Foreign memory fragments swarmed in, causing her to break out in a cold sweat, continuing for a long time before ending and leaving Wu Feng dumbfounded. Did she traverse? Before she could fully absorb the absurdity of it all, a whip flew towards her. Accompanying it was an incisive voice. "Little slut, it looks like you're pretty determined to keep this pathetic life of yours. My hands are already sore from hitting you, but you still have the strength to move. See if I don't beat you to death. Third sister, be careful not to kill her. She scratched my face, so her face now belongs to me. I want to carve on her little cheeks, like we did earlier on her body, until her face resembles a hornet's nest." Another excited and insidious voice joined in. "Wait!" Yet another voice, this one gentle, softly drifted over. "Eldest sister, why are you stopping us? This little slut dared to secretly seek out His Highness the Crown Prince. When we caught her, she actually bit third sister and scratched my face. Even her death wouldn't be enough to pay this debt." The owner of the insidious voice sounded unwilling, but she seemed fearful of the gentle-voiced woman. Hee. A melodious laugh sounded from above Wu Feng's head. "You've already slit the tendons of her hands and feet, and sheared her body 100 times with a knife." Third sister also vented her spite with 100 whiplashes, making it so that there is not one shred of presentable flesh on her body. Now the only thing she has left is her little face. Although the voice was tender and sweet, it was not difficult to perceive the disgust and mockery in it. Cold murder rose in Wu Feng's eyes. So her tendons were cut? No wonder she couldn't move her hands or feet. On another note, she found that voice quite familiar. Beneath her disorderly hair, Wu Feng slowly raised her eyes. The next moment, her entire body stiffened, and her eyes twinkled with a glint of ridicule before it was slowly eroded away by frost. She saw a woman who looked identical to Sanfeng Wan. Even their charm was synonymous. At the Sanfeng lookalike's words, the other two started to giggle as their moods eased. "Come, throw the 9th miss into the forest below the cliff. Let the beasts have her as nourishment. That's her only worth now." A tender voice, paired with cold and vicious words. Wu Feng didn't miss a word of the trio's conversation. In her mind, the memory of what had happened prior played. That day, His Highness the Crown Prince spent the night at General Manor, intending to pick someone from the manor to join the ranks of his harem as an imperial concubine. The original body's owner, who lived in the back mountains, had somehow appeared in the Crown Prince's room. Throughout that memory, there was no indication of the original body's owner entering the Crown Prince's room at all. Clearly, she had been framed. Afterward, she was captured by the eldest miss, third miss, and sixth miss and pulled to the cliffside, where she was then whipped and lacerated. "Ha, good, very good." Wu Feng's eyes gleamed coldly. On this day, she marked down everything that had been done to her. When her body was dragged unceremoniously through the debris, as though she were little more than a sack, a slice of bloodied flesh landed on the clifftop floor. As her body fell through the air and pummeled down the cliff, her heart filled with the desire for slaughter. Wait for her. Her return would mark the end of their peaceful days. The mountain grounds were packed full with ancient and colossal woods, and shrouded in what seemed like a millennium of darkness. A vast variety of magical beasts roamed the forest, causing it to emanate a malicious aura. Grr! A woo! Tigers roared, wolves howled, and their cries resonated across the whole forest. The startled Wu Feng, no, she was Yun Wu now, recovered her consciousness. Once she discerned her situation, Yun Wu couldn't help but feel her heart quiver. She arched her body and shuffled back to the cliff wall. A beam of golden light flashed through her mind, immediately followed by a strange passage of information. Rank 2 Golden Tiger, Fire Attribute. Strong offense, unique defense, low agility. They are twice as large as normal tigers. Rank 1 Ironback Wolf, Water Attribute. Average offense, weak defense, exceptional agility. A pack attack can rival the power of a rank 2 magical beast. Yun Wu's situation did not permit her the time to contemplate why these pieces of information were in her mind. On her right-hand side stood a rank 2 Golden Tiger. It was baring its fangs ferociously at a pack of ironback wolves and growling in warning while its eyes stared at her greedily, as a predator would with prey. On her left-hand side was a pack of ironback wolves. They were quite defiantly baring their fangs back at the rank 2 Golden Tiger, while similarly keeping a close eye on her. The situation was one of a large tiger and a pack of wolves competing for food, specifically Yun Wu's flesh. Both sides, tiger and wolves, exhibited their thirst and desire to devour her, and evidently, neither were willing to share. Yun Wu watched warily with her back pressed against the cliff wall. Suddenly, her head felt like it was splitting in half. In her mind, golden light exploded. Waves of information poured in, and then vanished without a trace, akin to a stone sinking into the bottomless ocean, leaving her with the sensation of an odd chi stream flowing through her meridians. She wondered what now, but in any case, she wasn't in the mood to think about other things. She knew she was currently no different from a fish on a cutting board, capable of nothing but waiting for the beasts to start fighting. Could it be that right after revival, she would die in the mouths of these beasts? No, definitely not. She already made it clear that anyone who owed her would receive payback of 100-fold. And right now, anyone who wanted to take her life would be repaid by having theirs taken. The beasts in front of her were no exceptions. Yun Wu clenched her teeth as she propped up her broken, battered body. Even the slit tendons of her hands and feet were unable to prevent her from setting foot onto the path of blood. What she didn't know was that the strange chi in her meridians, coupled with her willpower, had replaced her devastated tendons. Little by little, she straightened up while using the cliff wall as support, and at that moment, her terrifying mentality seemed to have taken control of her body. Her injuries and the pain coursing through her limbs were forgotten. She remembered only hatred and revenge. Murderous intent instantly rose from the depths of her soul, as heinous animosity smothered her dantian. Ak, a furious, human roar, carrying with it a penetrative murderous aura, tore from her throat. When that sound came out, the steadily approaching wolf pack and large tiger abruptly took a step back. Yun Wu's bloodstained hands grabbed a hold of a sharp piece of feldspar one, and her two eyes took on a cold-blooded scarlet hue as she glared fiercely at the group of beasts before her. Want to eat her? She'll let them fill their stomachs with their own blood. Seeming to have sensed her murderous intent, hesitancy flashed in the eyes of the magical beasts. Shortly after, against their better judgments, they let their bestial nature take over. Gore! Aho! Yowls resounded. One by one, the beasts revealed their fangs and pounced on her. Murderous intent surged in Yun Wu's scarlet eyes. Faced with the wolf pack's attacks, she bent her knees, leaped while pulling her hand back, and mercilessly pierced the skulls of two ironback wolves with her sharp feldspar. When she pulled out her makeshift weapon, thick blood poured out of the wolves' heads and instantaneously soiled the already blood-soaked clothes on her body and seeped into the ancient necklace hanging from her neck. Under her garments, a faint black light gradually blossomed. This escaped Yun Wu's notice. She moved like a lightning bolt, just as though this battered body of hers had transformed into the body she occupied in her previous life. Usually lax, but once she attacked, the blow would guarantee to be a fatal blow. Blood from a human and a group of beasts brought rise to a mesmerizing phoenix dance, with a peculiar charm. Everything, from Yin Wu's landing at the bottom of the cliff to her discovery of the beasts to the fight, was seen by a pair of unnerving black eyes as fascination slowly materialized in the curving corners of the holder's closed lips. What an interesting little pipsqueak. An unmoving shadow, one masked by darkness, watched as Yin Wu struck the beasts, and as the latter's honed claws ripped the flesh on her body. This scene roused a glimmer of bloodthirsty excitement in the shadow's black eyes. One could tell that he enjoyed this brutal bloodbath, and had little to no intentions to interrupt. Yin Wu quickened her attacks. Nonetheless, resisting a besiege of beasts with her sorry body, and the makeshift weapon, would inevitably cost her loses. Her body was already heavily gashed to begin with. Now, under the beast's claws, several more bone-deep wounds appeared. Blood dyed her figure from head to toe. Suddenly, Yin Wu stiffened, and her complexion abruptly shifted. Her entire body felt like it was fixed in place. She tried her utmost to free herself, but to no avail. She cursed. In the next moment, from along her neck to her chest, there came a terrible burning pain. It was comparable to having 10,000 needles perforating every single acupuncture point on her body. She grit her teeth as she endured the soul-excruciating pain. Beads of cold sweat slid down her forehead. Her face paled. Seeing the opportunity, the wolf pack and giant tiger attacked. She had never felt so small and helpless before, and she loathed the feeling of powerlessness. If she really was to die in the mouths of these beasts, she was unwilling, and she would always be unwilling. Brat, too countless people in this world are unwilling to depart, but your resistance pleases me quite a bit, so I shall lend you a hand. An elderly voice loftily sounded in her ears. Yin Wu's heart violently shook, because the moment that voice fell, she saw a black flame appear out of nowhere and momentarily burn all of the lunging beasts into ashes. An evening breeze swept by, taking the ashes with it. If it weren't for the few ironback wolf corpses still sprawled on the ground, she would have believed everything was all a hallucination, fabricated by her overexertion. The hidden man's eyes widened slightly. He had intended to make a move, but was interrupted by that elderly voice. However, the astonishment in his eyes was quickly subdued and replaced with a trace of great delight. His gaze became probing. Don't be too amazed. If it wasn't because I didn't have any other choice, I would have been too lazy to take action. However, Brat, you've really surprised me. I've been in a deep slumber for thousands of years, and aside from my first master, no one else has ever been able to break my seal. You were able to awaken me, so evidently you must have potential, but pity. Right now your body. Alas, what a pity. Sleep well, child. Don't push yourself any further. At his words, the prickling pain that had enveloped her entire body was gradually buffered by a warm current. Darkness invaded her consciousness. Vin. The elderly voice actually addresses himself as this old fellow, and not first-person pronouns. Following her collapse, the memories she hadn't yet digested once again bombarded her. She was foreign to this world and dynasty. Shenzhou continent, a land where martial arts was revered. The continent was divided up into three major powers: Zhou dynasty, Longsu kingdom, and the kingdom of An. The three countries were spread in a triangular layout with beast forest occupying the middle. One beast forest was, naturally, infested with magical beasts, to the point where even a martial practitioner would find it a dangerous place. It appeared that she, Yin Wu, was the youngest daughter of a concubine from Zhou dynasty's general manor, known to the population as the sickly good-for-nothing 9th Mississippi. In Shenzhou continent, every child would take an innate test on the first full moon subsequent to their birth. Yin Wu's result had been a 0, a congenital good-for-nothing. Moreover, her body was weaker than the average person's. This was especially true when she was 1 year old, during the time her birth mother wordlessly vanished, leaving the young Yin Wu to be abandoned in a hut within the manor's back mountain, and forced to fend for herself. Even under the mistreatment of the other concubines, her sisters, and the servants, she had managed to stay alive for 15 years. Yin Wu might not know why she acquired all of the memories dating back to the original body owner's birth, But she did make sure to remember every single instance of humiliation the former Yun Wu had ever suffered. Right. Since she, Wu Feng, became Yun Wu, she would help the former Yun Wu pay back each and every episode of injustice. 3 days later, Yun Wu gulped down the last mouthful of beast blood before rising from the body of a red-striped tiger. The inside of her mouth was stained with the nauseating taste of blood, but the warmth that began to permeate her body evoked from her a bloodthirsty smirk. Magical beast blood, as it turned out, actually had great nourishing effects. After spending the past 3 days in the forest, she had encountered a vast variety of magical beasts. She was already very calm when faced with the oddly colored animals, because this life gave her no time to be astonished or to slowly adapt. For 3 days, she killed off every magical beast that neared the bottom of the cliff, and she would then drink their blood. Her battered body was healing little by little, albeit very slowly. As for that elderly voice, it came from the necklace she had been wearing since birth. The necklace turned out to be a sacred relic left behind by the sorceress clan, and she had awakened the spirit inside of the necklace. However, the spirit told her that because her current body was technically dead, there was no way for him to establish a spiritual contract with her. He told her about drinking magical beast blood and digesting sage grass to prevent her body from decomposing, and afterward, the necklace never moved again. Beast blood. She drank 3 days of beast blood, and her slit tendons had then mysteriously grown back. Sage grass. As the godly doctor of a 21st century assassins organization, although she hadn't tasted every single herb on the planet, she was nonetheless very well versed in pharmacology and herbal medicine. Alas, she'd searched the nearby vicinity for days without producing any results. That meant she would have to browse deeper into the forest. It was a full moon. On this night, the forest's beasts seemed restless and eager to stir trouble. Yin Wu concealed her breathing. As she lurked through the forest, her speed stayed consistent until a rank 2 striped leopard blocked her way. Her silhouette flashed. Once her back was pressed up against a large tree, she released a handmade feldspar weapon smeared with poisonous herb extract. Coated with moonlight, the feldspar flew in the direction of the resting leopard and sunk into its head. Sneak attacks were an assassin's specialty. The leopard's roar cut through the forest sky, finally shattering the forest's eerie silence before swiping at its head, dislodging the feldspar and causing blood to gush out. By then, Yun Wu's petite body had already stealthily slipped away. Underneath the cover of the night, she noiselessly eluded the areas ridden by beasts and sped straight into the depths of the forest. Deep inside the forest was a remote lake. Its surface sparkled and shone with the reflection of a round moon, beautiful and uncanny. An assortment of plants encircled the lake. Seeing all the plants, Yun Wu's pursed lips slowly curved into a predatory smile. She picked out a few high-quality medical herbs to chew on and simultaneously gathered some herbs that would reduce inflammation and help with suppuration too. Beast blood could nourish and repair one's meridians, but it did nothing for external wounds. The gashes on her mangled body were starting to suppurate and become inflamed, giving off the foul smell of festering flesh. Yun Wu took off her tattered, barely adequate clothes and stepped bare into the deep lake. When the ice-cold lake water came into contact with her wounds, it brought her a succession of sharp, spasmodic pain, but she showed no hesitation. With her pale hands, she washed away the crushed rock fragments that were stuck in her open flesh, and patiently cleared away the decayed flesh on her body. Cold sweat slid down her forehead, but she didn't utter a sound, and nor did her eyebrows furrow. Only her breathing became heavier. The lake water around her was eventually dyed blood red. When Yin Wu got out of the water, the wounds on her body were dripping with fresh blood, yet she turned a blind eye, sat down by the lakeside, and took the readied anti-inflammatory herbs into her mouth. She chewed on them, and applied the saliva-covered herbs onto her wounds. The moon and stars cast a dim halo of brilliance over the glistening lake's crystalline surface, and refracted light upon Yun Wu's body. Her pale and colorless face shone with a sort of suffocating beauty. Perhaps she was not aware of it, but in the eyes of the man hiding in the dark, she resembled a fallen angel, so painfully beautiful and alluring, especially with those crimson droplets sliding down her skin. A cool night breeze brushed by Yin Wu's ears. She felt a perturbing gaze staring closely at her from the dark. This feeling of being secretly watched was not new. At first, she had thought it was merely her imagination. But after 3 days of it, she would be a fool to still believe that. She smeared the chewed-up herbs on her last uncovered wound before stretching out her hand, swiftly grabbing her tattered clothes, and quickly throwing them on. When she rose, she simultaneously snatched up her usual feldspar. All of a sudden, Yin Wu's ear twitched. She turned her head slightly, just in time to see a thread of powerful chi force whisk towards her. Her figure promptly flickered, and at the same time she evaded, her poisonous feldspar tore through the air at the target behind her. As long as the perpetrator moved, then no matter how perfect their concealment technique, their location would still be given away. Ryop. The sound of clothes tearing. Behind her, she saw a vague silhouette leap into the air and immediately disappear again into the dark forest. Her attack had surprisingly only scratched the perpetrator's clothing. She was facing a keen opponent. Just then, an indistinct stream of chilling green light surrounded the vicinity, and the clamor of beasts snapping their jaws rang out from all four corners. Was it the smell of blood on her body that attracted the beasts? Or was it because of that person? Regardless of the reason, anything that came close to her kill. Yin Wu promptly darted behind a large rock, feldspar in hand, her dormant posture akin to that of a wild beast. Her cold eyes gleamed. A pair of sly eyes noted every single movement of hers. The man's compressed lips curved into an amused, bloodthirsty smile. He knew she had been aware of his surveillance. Alas, she didn't have the ability to pinpoint his location yet. But he had a feeling that this little pipsqueak would soon be brimming with radiance. Really, what a fascinating little pipsqueak. A magnetic low mutter, and then a tall figure emerged from the darkness. Truthfully, the man was the most beautiful person Yin Wu had ever seen in both lifetimes. Enchanting silver hair, shapely eyebrows, twinkling black eyes, skin like snow, and a pair of seductive lips. His body seemed to be emanating a strange magical force, making it so that a single glance would make one feel as though their state of mind was being snatched away. Even Yin Wu fell into a moment of absent-mindedness, but quickly, her eyes recovered their clarity and took on a murderous look. You know the soul assimilation technique? That strange feeling. She had experienced this allegedly advanced form of hypnotism before. In her past life when she was carrying out a task in a remote country. Her first impression of this man, too dangerous. The smile on the man's thin lips widened. This is my first time encountering a woman who didn't get mesmerized by me. Little pipsqueak, what are you called? Cautious of the approaching man, Yin Wu's dormant body immediately went on guard, and she snarled icily, "Don't get any closer, or else I'll take your life." The man laughed. "There are countless people who wish to take my life. Unfortunately, not a single one could. If you little pipsqueak have the ability, then I wouldn't mind handing my life to you." He turned a deaf ear to her threat and drew closer, his slender eyes serene yet devilish. Swoosh! The sound of a sharp weapon slicing through the air, followed by the scent of blood. Surprisingly, although the beasts detected the smell, they did not advance, and instead seemed to be frightened by it. They quickly withdrew. Yin Wu's eyes flashed with disbelief as she stared at the man. He hadn't bothered to dodge, allowing her feldspar to pierce his broad palm. Poison he was unaffected by. The injury he readily accepted. Drops of crimson blood dripped down from his hand, immediately withering the flowers they came in contact with. "Looks like you're unable to take my life. Then, tonight I have taken yours. You shall belong to me." The magnetic voice carried with it a hint of domineeringness. Yin Wu's eyes widened and chilled. She had just thought to move when in an instant, she felt her consciousness dim. "You." In her last moment of consciousness, she swore she saw the man laugh enticingly before swooping down to take her into his arms and leaning down to kiss her red lips. She never would have imagined that one day she would, out of nowhere, fall into the hands of a man. It was daytime. There was no telling how many days had passed since that night. A blazing hot, tingling, and unbearably itchy sensation pulled Yin Wu's consciousness from the abyss. As soon as she opened her bright eyes, She subconsciously bent her fingers, wanting to give her body a good scratch. It was that moment she realized her arms were spread and bound on both sides. She struggled but found that her body was so itchy, she couldn't even find the strength to lift a finger. To her dismay, her entire body was bare without a single article of clothing, and she was immersed in a small pond that emitted blood-colored steam. She instantly felt confused. Awake? And here I thought it would take you another day. Little Pipsqueak, from now on, remember to nourish your body properly. Otherwise, with your flat stature, I really wouldn't know where to lay down my hand. An incomparably devilish voice suddenly teased. A beguiling man, clad in white, strolled into the cavern as his lips arched into a smile. You, of course it's me. If not me, who does little Pipsqueak think it is? The eyes that he stared at her with were glaringly overbearing and possessive. It brought Yunwu a wave of displeasure. Release me. Her voice was hoarse, and she clenched her teeth. The man looked at Yunwu while smiling. He made a gesture with his fair hand. 2 rays of cold light shot out, and the ropes around her wrists promptly broke into 2 halves. Don't scratch. It wasn't easy to get your skin to heal. I'm someone who loves beauty, even more so beautiful people, and right now, every bit of your body belongs to me. He stood by the pond, grinning slyly as he ran his eyes over each and every inch of her exposed skin. When Yunwu heard him, she almost snapped off the roots of her teeth in anger. Shameless. But despite her exasperation, Yunwu continued to soak in the pond and didn't get up. Although she didn't know kind of herbs and blood were mixed into the pond water, she could feel it working at a breakneck pace to close up the wounds on her body. If it weren't for her having exceptional self-control, she probably would have succumbed to the itchiness already and long left scratches on her skin. She was gripping the rocks that enclosed the pool so tightly, her nails were screeching. Only by doing this could she resist the impulse to scratch her body. The man was smiling the whole time. His keen eyes brimmed with amusement and sheer interest. Just from watching her for 3 days, he was able to tell that this meager girl was actually pungently tough, and that aspect thoroughly amused him. It had been long since he last felt his blood roaring and surging like this. All of a sudden, his hand reached out and grabbed the necklace that was plastered to her chest. Yunwu paid him no heed. It was a spiral-shaped pendant, suffused with an air of old age. In the eyes of outsiders, it was undoubtedly just an utterly hideous and worthless necklace. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to peacefully stay around Yunwu's neck for so long. After a glance, the man withdrew his probing gaze. Mischievously, the same slender finger glided upwards to provoke her narrow chin. Say, Pipsqueak, should I eat you now or raise you a bit more? It's getting a little hard to resist. Yunwu didn't even stop to think before opening her mouth to bite the finger that had touched her. Hard. The man laughed and let her bite him. What she didn't expect was for her consciousness to suddenly dwindle when his blood came in contact with her tongue. That was when she realized that his blood was actually an overpowering drug. Late at night, Yunwu woke up for the second time that day. This time, she found herself lying on a smooth expanse of rock. The uncomfortable itch had vanished, replaced by a cool sensation. She exploited the dim moonlight to look down at her body, which she found to be, once again, completely bare. There was a slight shift in her expression, and then a glimmer of surprise. Her marred skin was now white beyond compare and tender like a freshly simmered and shelled egg. Not a single scar left behind. That blood medicine pool was the first thing she thought of. She quickly suppressed the astonishment in her heart and put on her old, tattered clothes before finally beginning to scrutinize her surroundings. It was a fairly clean cavern. The small pond was still there, situated in a corner, except the blood water had dried up. She scoured the cavern and did not catch a single glimpse of that bastard, until her gaze swept out of the cavern and landed on the lake outside. There was the silhouette of a man in the water. Murderous intent rose in Yunwu's eyes. In this world and her last, there had never been a person who dared to threaten and take advantage of her without paying the price. Under the boundless moonlight, Yunwu's live body mirrored a soundless leopard as she stealthily headed for the lake. The lake glistened with faint ripples, and the sound of water splashing resonated through the night. The man was leaning against a rock, his body submerged in the water, while a head full of silver hair hung loosely down his delicate back. Although clearly, only his back was showing, the sight was already overwhelmingly enticing. Little by little, Yunwu approached, and as she did, she couldn't help but wrinkle her brows. She had to admit, this man was the epitome of temptation. She quieted her breathing and drew near. She aimed, and the sharp wooden stick in her hand streaked towards the man. "You're here." A light, wicked laugh. The silhouette of the man moved and deftly evaded her attack. As surprise flashed in Yunwu's eyes, the man grabbed the stick without looking, and his other hand brushed against her waist. Swift and threatening, a strong pull sent Yunwu's body swooping through the air. The entanglement of their bodies caused the two of them to fall into the water. Yunwu was caught off guard and choked on a large mouthful of water. She started to cough as a broad smile appeared on the devil's handsome face. He wrapped one hand around her waist and teased her chin up with the other. He teased impishly. "Immediately after waking up, you delivered yourself to my doorsteps. What an impatient little fellow. But I like it. Remember, I am your man Long Qingxia." Long Qingxia inclined his head, intending to kiss her red lips, but then his face sank. He looked down to see Yunwu holding a sharp-edged rock against his heart. The rock had appeared out of nowhere. He was unervingly dangerous, but she wasn't a simple character either. "Those who wish to be my man are already lining up in the palace of hell. Would you still like me if I pierced your heart?" The corners of Yunwu's lips arched into a vicious sneer. Long Qingxia lifted his line of sight from his chest to the girl before him. Her pale little face was not outrageously beautiful, but right then, deep within her bottomless black orbs, was a shock of intense ferocity. That in his eyes was charming enough to be lethal. Long Qingxia acknowledged himself as a perilous man, yet now, he was being thoroughly enthralled by Yunwu. Subconsciously, his lips slowly curved into a roguish smile. Ignoring her threat, he pinched her chin, leaned in, and flashed her a wicked smile. "To die beneath a peony flower one is still remarkably romantic. I would willingly fall into hell with you, if it means we can be united through wedlock." His words had just fallen when a pair of passionate lips covered her cold ones and domineeringly forced entry. The kiss burning hot and heart-stirring. "Fall into hell together?" Those words struck a chord in her heart. What a familiar-sounding sentence. Murderous intent abruptly sprang from her body. Her free hand turned over, and she thrust it against Long Qingxia's neck in a knife-like manner. "Little pipsqueak, you really are troublesome. Look, you've even ruined such a nice atmosphere." Reluctantly releasing her red lips, he smiled devilishly as he dodged her hand and simultaneously brushed aside the sharp rock that was pressed against his chest. When Yunwu saw this, her eyes gleamed with a cold light, and she leaned forward to launch an aggressive attack. But right when Long Qingxia pulled back, she suddenly withdrew. By the time he reacted, she had already swum to the opposite bank of the lake. "Don't let me see you again, or I'll definitely kill you." Within her icy utterance, there was an almost imperceptible trace of a complex emotion. She didn't turn to look at Long Qingxia. Instead, she grabbed the belongings she'd left by the lakeside and quickly disappeared into the night. "Little pipsqueak, you actually think you've escaped from me? How naive." The man whispered and laughed lightly as he stared after her fleeing figure. What Yunwu didn't know was that back then, the day she propped up her broken body and fought with the besiege of magical beasts, the man's malicious eyes had shone with a faint hint of determination. He wanted to make her his because, from her body, he had detected the spirit of his own kind. Early in the morning, the silence of the back mountain was shattered by a succession of footsteps. "Move faster. After that hut is dismantled, throw the logs into the latrine too, and let them soak there for a while. Then pull them out to be burned." A lofty voice commanded, "Miss Xiao Chui, if the logs are thrown into the latrine, they wouldn't be able to ignite." "Right. Miss Xiao Chui, why do it like that? Wouldn't it be easier to just burn them from the start?" "What do you two know?" The third miss and the sixth miss said, since that good-for-nothing was shameless enough to try a seduction attempt on His Highness the Crown Prince, her death is only a matter of fact. Her belongings are only suited to be thrown into the latrine. Another sharp and arrogant voice rang out. What are you guys spewing so much nonsense for? Just do what you were told to do. After that rundown hut is dismantled, the sixth miss wants a wooden shed to be erected in its place. She plans to rear some magical beasts there. The speaker was sixth Miss Yin Qing'er's personal maidservant Xiao Lu. The one who had spoken before was third Miss Yin Ling Shui's personal maidservant Xiao Chui. These two servants just so happened to be the ones who threw Yin Wu off the cliff that day. They both exhibited somewhat spoiled and haughty temperaments, as they led a pair of stocky guards down the path to the hut. Not a word of their dialogue escaped Yin Wu's keen hearing. Inside the hut, Yin Wu's eyes turned murderous, but the corners of her mouth lifted. Those vicious servants actually delivered themselves to her door. Bang! The door was kicked open. Xiao Chui and Xiao Lu took the lead and stepped in. They intended to look around first to see if they could scavenge anything valuable from the hut before dismantling it, but they found the place shabby and sorry-looking, comparable to a beggar's nest. Their disdain-filled eyes scoured the place, and they were about to let the two guards in when all of a sudden, the maidservant's eyes widened. It was as if what they had seen was so terrifying, it had shattered the greater part of their souls. Ninth. In her shock, Xiao Chui could only stammer the word ninth. Xiao Lu was also scared beyond words as she watched Yin Wu stand up and slowly approach them. Xiao Lu wanted to flee, but her legs trembled violently. Ninth miss. No, impossible. That day, without a doubt, they had thrown her off the cliffside to serve as beast feed. She had no chance of survival. Yin Wu smirked at their reactions. Wretched slaves. What's wrong? If I remember correctly, you two like to play with me the most. It's only been a few days, so why now are you both so frightened? Yin Wu's breezy laughter gently drifted into the maidservants' ears. They couldn't help but shiver. Miss Xiao Chui, Miss Xiao Lu, what's wrong? Did something happen? The voice of a guard sounded from behind the door, immediately and effectively snapping the two maidservants out of their stupors. The horror in their eyes abruptly contorted into ruthlessness. Two rays of red, rank 1 late-stage battle spirit sprang forth from their bodies and struck at Yin Wu. Regardless of whether she was a human or a ghost, all they had to do was simply kill her again. Yin Wu promptly sidestepped their attacks. In but an instant, the shoddy bed behind her was pulverized by the two rays of red battle spirit. Yin Wu's eyebrows scrunched up by just a bit. So this was the so-called strength of Shinzhou Continent's combat prowess? How terrifyingly ferocious. A second later, the light in her eyes chilled. She moved, and the moment the two wretched slaves lowered their guards, their necks were swiftly severed by a blade. The art of killing actually didn't involve many intricacies. It was as simple as grasping the right moment and aiming at a fatal point. Then, one move would be more than enough to end someone's life. Through her acquired memories, Yun Wu had learned that when one's martial prowess surpassed rank 2, one would naturally gain a defensive ability that would serve to protect their entire body. Clearly, those wretched slaves hadn't reached that level. So for Yun Wu, killing them was as easy as turning her hand. On the ground, Xiao Chui and Xiao Lu's eyes were still wide open and filled with shock. Even in death, they never would have believed that they had been killed by one blow from a sickly good-for-nothing. Having heard the sounds of struggle, the two guards immediately rushed into the hut. But when they saw the corpses of Xiao Chui and Xiao Lu, then the girls standing over the bodies, their faces paled. They turned around and tried to flee. Right when they ran out of the hut, they felt something strike and numb their legs, forcing them to their knees. Where are you two going? Aren't you here to dismantle the hut? This hut is still intact, so why are you both already running away? Aren't you afraid of the two misses breaking your legs? Yun Wu strolled out of the hut, dragging the foot of a corpse on each hand as she leisurely walked towards the guards. Ninth miss, spare our lives, we don't know anything. The panic-stricken guards looked at Yun Wu as though they were seeing a ghost who had crawled out of hell. The guards were merely low-ranking ones, and they were only at the middle stage of rank 1. Aside from watching over the doorway and occasionally lifting things, they had never been in a real fight. If the rank 1 late-stage Xiao Chui and Xiao Lu were killed, wouldn't it be even easier to kill the guards? Yun Wu's cold eyes looked down at them loftily. Take these two corpses back to their respective myths and throw them in their rightful latrines. Make no mistake, or else, your endings will be no different from theirs. The guards looked at the corpses and shuddered, but they dared not defy. They bobbed their heads up and down, repeatedly saying, "Yes, yes." Subsequently, they each hoisted a corpse and then hurriedly fled. Too terrifying. Just one look was enough to cause others great alarm. Was that person really the sickly and easily bullied ninth miss? No, definitely not. Even if it was surely her ghost. After watching the guards scurry off, Yunsu slowly turned to look at the trail of blood left behind by the two corpses she had dragged out. She subconsciously thought of that night, the bloodstain her body had left on the cliffside floor. Murderous intent continued to brew in her heart. She felt bloodthirsty satisfaction. She had declared that when she returned, Yin family's peaceful days would end. Now Yin Wu had returned. Perhaps the guards really were scared out of their wits by Yin Wu, because they didn't alarm anyone when they threw the corpses into each respective courtyard's latrine one. However, before the corpses were found, 6th Miss Yin Qing was already hastily leading several maidservants to the back mountain. "Xiaolu, you stinking brat. I told you to find people to dismantle a tiny hut, yet you dawdled for an entire morning." The person had yet to arrive, but her angry voice did. Yin Wu was basking in the sun, her body half sprawled atop a large boulder that was situated near the hut. She opened her eyes, but only to unhurriedly turn her head in the direction of the voice. When a familiar figure entered her line of sight, her lips lazily drew an arch. Having bathed in the sunlight for a whole morning, the malice in her heart had finally calmed a bit, but that was only temporary. Courtesy of that mysterious man's blood medicine pool, the wounds on Yin Wu's body had completely healed. However, she had happened to discover that a form of poison had been residing inside her for over a decade now. It was incurable. Fortunately, the poison wasn't one that killed instantly. Instead, it served to gradually eat away at her internal organs until ultimately, she would die watching helplessly as her entire body rotted. At the beginning, victims of this poison would retain the same physique as any other healthy individual, but when consumed perennially, the poison would force the victim's constitution to gradually collapse, reducing them to a weak and morbid state, no different from an invalid. Since the start of Yin Wu's acquired memories, she was known to have a feeble physique, which meant she had been poisoned at birth. To be so cruel, who could have done it? Anyhow, regardless of who, they must belong to Yun Manor. It would be impossible for an outsider to make the former Yin Wu unwittingly ingest over a decade's worth of poison. The culprit had better pray they don't get discovered by her, because if they did, she would definitely let them taste how being corroded by poison felt. Yin Qing'er's current mood was especially foul, the reason being, that afternoon, some of His Highness the Crown Prince's servants had arrived to arrange for a lake outing with Yin Lingshui and Yin Qing'er. On the other hand, Yin Qing'er had received a cold reception. Under those circumstances, how could she be feeling good? Normally, she would head to the back mountain and cool down by beating up the sickly Yun Wu. Unfortunately, that good-for-nothing had died. And yet, when Yin Qing'er saw the figure lazing atop a boulder, her expression changed, her steps halted, and her anger also vanished. Her eyesight wasn't failing, was it? She forcibly blinked and reopened her eyes, but nothing changed. Yin Qing'er pulled a maidservant to her side and pointed at Yin Wu. "What do you see?" "It's the ninth miss." The maidservant's voice was trembling while the other two maidservants were also visibly shocked. The ninth miss's demise and her fate afterward was something everyone in the manor knew about. "Fifth sister, it's only been a few days since we last saw each other. Do you not recognize me anymore?" Yin Wu's soft voice drifted like a zephyr. Yin Qing'er's eyes flashed with panic, quickly followed by astonishment and disbelief. You're actually not dead? How could that be? If I did die, you wouldn't have anyone to bully anymore. You wouldn't be able to thrash at me and diffuse anger. So wouldn't you be disappointed?" Yin Wu said as she slowly rose from the boulder and flexed her shoulders. Then, she smiled and lifted her eyes to lazily look at Yin Qing'er. Yin Qing'er met Yin Wu's stare, and suddenly couldn't help but shiver. She was confused. Yin Wu still looked like how she did before. sickly without a trace of battle spirit. There was no doubt about it. Despite that, the current Yin Wu made Yin Qing'er feel a vague sense of danger. However, rage started brewing in Yin Qing'er's heart. She was already in a bad mood. And now not only did she find out that this good-for-nothing was still alive, but she was even getting snubbed by her. How could Yin Qing'er, someone who had been pampered since childhood, tolerate such disrespect? She drew out her whip and sent out a ray of yellow battle spirit. The straight whip curved and locked on Yin Wu. Yin Qing'er's voice was charged with anger. Good for nothing. You actually didn't die, and you dare speak to this miss in such an ill manner. It looks like you're tired of living. Last time I couldn't finish you off. This time, I'll definitely beat you to death. Integrated with yellow battle spirit, the whip increased tenfold in power. It whistled through the air, heading straight for Yin Wu. Yin Wu's body flickered, moving down from the boulder. Crash! The whip slapped against the earth, making dust surge up, and leaving a long, deep imprint on the ground. Seeing this, murderous intent rose in Yin Wu's eyes. If it had been the previous Yin Wu, this one lash would have thoroughly split her in half. Since Yin Qing'er was going to be this way, Yin Wu didn't plan on holding back either. When the whip came down again, Yin Wu did not retreat. Quick as lightning, she wielded her dagger and forced it against Yin Qing'er's throat. Whips were only suitable for long-range combat. Once one's opponent entered close proximity, the whip would become useless. Slight surprise appeared on Yin Qing'er's face, as she didn't think a good-for-nothing would be so agile. But her reaction speed was not slow either. The instant Yin Wu's dagger approached Yin Qing'er's neck, a ray of yellow battle spirit flared out from within Yin Qing'er, coating her body and acting as though she was wearing an invulnerable set of armor. The dagger was abruptly broken, while Yin Wu's body was forced back several paces. Yin Wu felt a phantom of surprise flash through her heart. Rank 2 practitioner's defense ability? The Yin Qing'er and her acquired memories had not broken through rank 2 yet. But looking at the situation now, it was possible that she had already broken through rank 2 and was simply concealing her strength. With her temperament, however, it was impossible to have such perseverance. In other words, someone was hiding in the shadows, guiding Yin Qing'er. Who? Yin Wu wondered. Could it be the person who poisoned me? That possibility caused Yin Wu's to chill even more. A haze of brutality draped over Yin Qing'er's face. She looked as though she had discovered something crucial, and that something had angered her greatly. Slut, you didn't die and gained such a high level of agility instead? Looks like the Tier 2 elemental wind pill I lost was stolen and used by you. Last time in the Dragon Pavilion auction house, Yin Qing'er had spent all of her savings to attain a Tier 2 elemental wind pill. She had intended to consume it once she broke through rank 2. That way, she would be able to increase the speed of her dual attacks. Unfortunately, only after she broke through did she discover that the pill had disappeared into thin air. Now, seeing Yin Wu alive and so nimble, Yin Qing'er couldn't help but associate it with her missing pill. This she could not let go. That was a Tier 2 elemental wind pill. Tier 2 On Shenzhou continent, the possibility of an apothecarist appearing was one in a minimum of 10,000. And amongst 1,000 apothecaries, only with the aid of luck would one become an alchemist. Furthermore, alchemists were tiered. Producing a second-tier pill would require an alchemist to be on at least the second tier. Don't mention Zhou dynasty. Even in Shenzhou continent as a whole, there were probably less than 1,000 alchemists in existence. Think, to have a country as large as Zhou dynasty, with an understated population of tens of millions, plus the other 2 leading countries, and not to mention the smaller neighboring countries. And yet the combined total of alchemists could not exceed 1,000. It went without saying how valuable a Tier 2 elemental wind pill was. When Yin Wu heard Yin Qing'er's accusation, her eyebrows furrowed. She ate Yin Qing'er's Tier 2 elemental wind pill? Bullshit. The previous Yin Wu was weak and feeble. Just walking out of the door would drain all of her energy and send her wheezing. So how could she possibly have possessed the ability to run to Yin Qing'er's courtyard? Moreover, to steal a pill? Wasn't this obviously pouring shit on her head one? Nonetheless, Yin Qing'er was bent on clinging to her own suspicions, firmly believing her pill had been stolen and consumed by Yun Wu, and thus didn't give Yun Wu a chance to refute. Yun Qing'er felt like the anger swirling inside her could turn the sky upside down. She no longer held back any strength as yellow battle spirit began to whirl about. Her whip whistled, determined to claim Yun Wu's life. Pa! Yun Qing'er's weapon took after a serpent, extremely fast and exceeding ruthless as it lunged at Yun Wu. Yun Wu leaped and nimbly dodged the attack. For a short while, Yun Wu couldn't get near Yun Qing'er's body at all. More bloodstains accumulated on her own body instead. Damn! Yun Wu's predicament once again reminded her that she was much too weak. Her killing abilities still had room for improvement because medicine was her primary focus. But even if she reached the peak of perfection on assassination, she still wouldn't be able to take on the strength of Shinjo Continent's martial arts. Actually, Yun Qing'er was also a little stunned. The attacks she had released were all full-force attacks. Yet to her surprise, the former good-for-nothing was able to dodge again and again. The thought of Yun Wu consuming her Tier 2 elemental wind pill to reach that speed instantly replaced her astonishment with sinister rage. Slut, you dare to hide. See if I don't beat you to death. Her whip, enveloped in battle spirit and imbued with vicious strength, flew towards Yun Wu again. On the ground, a train of welts surfaced. Yun Wu knew if she let things continue like this, she would suffer. Immediately, she turned tail and fled in the direction of Yun Manor. Yun Qing'er's eyes were red with anger. How could she let Yun Wu escape? She waved her whip and gave chase. General Yun Lingyi was stationed at the border all year round. Thus Yun Manor's matters, both big and small, were overseen by Old Master Yin. Since he disliked having to manage the manor's trivial happenings, he put Yun Lingyi's main wife in charge of the manor, and retreated into secluded meditation, and more or less so vanished. Yun Manor Presence Chamber 2. Head Madam Lu Qingyue was talking to housekeeper Wu Gang when suddenly, they heard a commotion outside. Their expressions changed. Wu Gang hastily took the small wooden box that was sitting on the table and carefully stored it away. What's happening outside? Lu Qingyue asked, frowning. A guard hurriedly arrived at the door and reported. Answering head madam. It's 6th Miss and 9th Mississippi. They are fighting in the garden. Rather than call it a fight, pursuit was a more suitable term. The 9th Miss was originally declared dead, but from the way things looked now, she was not only still alive but also brimming with energy, as she dodged the 6th Miss's persistent attacks. Wasn't the 9th Miss supposed to be a sickly good-for-nothing? How strange. The 9th Miss? Are you sure you weren't mistaken? Wu Gang's voice carried with it an odd lilt. Answering housekeeper Wu. This subordinate definitely was not mistaken. It is indeed 9th Miss and 6th Miss who are fighting. The guard answered assuredly. A strange look came across Wu Gang's square face. He subconsciously turned his head to look at Lu Qingyue. Her eyebrows were scrunched together, but she quickly regained her usual calmness. Let us go and see what's going on. With that, she rose from her seat and slowly walked to the chamber entrance. Yes, head madam. Wu Gang resumed his solemn look and respectfully followed. Yun Manor Garden. The other madams and misses caught wind of the commotion and arrived with some maidservants, followed by Lu Qingyue and Wu Gang. When they noticed Yun Wu in the process of agilely dodging Yun Qing'er's whip, astonishment appeared on their faces while Lu Qingyue and Wu Gang's expressions immediately changed. What do the two of you think you're doing? A dark voice thundered. Lu Qingyue angrily waved her hand, signaling the guards to go intervene, but they neared only to be forcibly flung away. Everyone present could sense the force behind that whip attack. It was the strength of a rank 2, early-stage practitioner. Wasn't the 6th Miss at the late stage of rank 1? When did she have a breakthrough? Lu Qingyue's eyes narrowed slightly. She inclined her head to one side and looked at 5th Madam Lu Qinshui, Yun Qing'er's mother and Lu Qingyue's younger cousin. Lu Qinshui wore an expression of delight, but she felt Lu Qingyue's gaze and quickly restrained herself. Lu Qinshui said weakly, Elder cousin, this is also my first time learning of Yun Qing'er's breakthrough. With so many women in the manor, scheming was an inevitable affair. Lu Qingyue withdrew her gaze and turned her head to give housekeeper Wu Gang a look. Immediately, Wu Gang thrust out his foot and sent out a powerful ray of green battle spirit to single-handedly latch onto the whip in Yin Qing'er's hands. Sixth miss, please cease your anger. Housekeeper Wu, let go. Today, no matter what, I have to have this slut dismembered. Yin Qing'er fumed, her eyes red with roaring anger. Qing'er, your great-aunt standing here. So what are you still kicking up a storm for? Don't be so insensible. Quick, come here. Lu Qingshui hurriedly chastised while shooting Yin Qing'er a look. Normally, Yin Qing'er would comply. But this time, she was too far gone and too angry. Great-aunt mother, neither of you know. Last time, that Tier 2 elemental wind pill I lost was eaten by this slut, Yin Wu. I refuse to calm down until she's dead. The moment Yin Qing'er mentioned her missing Tier 2 elemental pill, Lu Qinghua stiffened. Her eyes flashed. Although it was a minute reaction, it was a trifle in the discerning eyes of an assassin. Yin Wu swept a dark glance at Lu Qinghua, as Yin Wu sneered coldly in her heart. Looks like she, Yin Wu, not only had to tolerate having shit poured over her head, but now she was also being made to carry another's blame. What? That Tier 2 elemental wind pill you lost was eaten by her? Lu Qingshui's voice rose in anger. She was clear on what that Tier 2 elemental wind pill would have meant for the mother-daughter pair. Immediately, her countenance became one of rage. She spun her head towards Lu Qinghua. Elder cousin, this time, no matter if you do it in private or in public, you have to punish this bitch and give my daughter and I justice. Great aunt, if you hand the matter of this little bitch's punishment over to me, then during the Imperial Hunting Tournament next month, I'll definitely lend third sister a hand and lift her to victory. Yin Qing'er promised through gritted teeth. This year, the Imperial family was going to hold a hunting tournament for children of noble status. In name, it was a friendly pastime. In reality, its purpose was to allow the Imperial family to select a few suitable candidates for the Imperial princes to choose from, with the tournament winner gaining an opportunity to become the Crown Prince's consort, the Crown Princess. All 9 misses of Yin Manor were eligible for participation, but the only ones who were truly qualified to take part in the tournament consisted of a mere trio. The most talented eldest Miss Yin Xian Heir, the legitimate third Miss Yin Ling Shui, and the 6th Miss, Yin Qing'er. Yin Qing'er's promise meant that she was willing to relinquish her chance at being the Crown Princess in order to help Yin Ling Shui. With that, one could imagine just how angry Yin Qing'er was. When Lu Qingshui heard her daughter's words, her expression changed. When Lu Qinghua heard, she was secretly pleased, but she concealed it well. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Lu Qinghua frowned, then sighed and waved her hand. Forget it, forget it. Since Yin Wu ate your Tier 2 pill, I'll let you decide her consequences. However, don't go overboard. After all, she is still Yin Manor's 9th Mississippi. Yin Qing'er laughed cruelly. Great aunt, rest assured. Even if I don't kill her, I'll ensure she'll never have the mouth to steal food again. At her remark, everyone present understood that if Yin Wu were to fall into Yin Qing'er's hands, Yin Wu would be forced to lead a life worse than death. Even so, no one present took pity on Yin Wu. Rather, quite a few were interested in watching a show. On the side, Yin Wu listened to their conversation and couldn't help but sneer in her heart. Letting herself get chased into Yin Manor was intentional on her part. She had 3 reasons for doing so. 1. To uncover Yin Qing'er's backer. 2. To figure out why she was made a scapegoat. 3. To sniff out who was most likely to have poisoned her. She had gotten a good grasp on the workings behind the drama happening before her. So it was time to retreat. She, Yin Wu, was not a someone to be bullied and pushed around. Obediently let Yin Qing'er kill her? They've still got a long way to go. 9th Miss, I'm afraid you can't leave yet. Just as Yin Wu turned to leave, Wu Gang suddenly stepped in front of her, blocking her path of retreat. Information from her acquired memories stated, Wu Gang, innate green rank, peak of rank 6. Attribute wind. Weapon of choice broadsword. Wind attribute. No wonder he was able to soundlessly appear in front her. He had done so in the blink of an eye. If he wanted to kill her, it would presumably be as easy as turning his hand. Martial practitioners specialized in battle spirit strong bodily defense and formidable combat ability. The hierarchy went: practitioner ranks 1 through 9, master practitioner, martial sage, and exalted sage. Every level was divided into the following: early stage, middle stage, late stage, and the peak. Currently, in Zhou Dynasty, a peak level rank 6 practitioner would already be considered an expert. There were 5 attributes: wind, wood, water, earth, and fire. 7 innate colors: red, orange, yellow, green, teal, blue, and purple as the highest. Together, these factors came down to one conclusion. The role this housekeeper Wu played in Yun Manor was not simple. His background identity was likely even more complicated. Housekeeper Wu, you still know me as the 9th Miss? Yun Wu raised her head, lips slightly curved as she met his sharp and gloomy eyes with her own cold gaze. Wu Gang looked at her, and when he saw her bottomless eyes, he was unable to restrain his eyebrows from wrinkling. A quick second later, Yun Wu's body resumed its former appearance. Sick and weak, no battle spirit at all, but Wu Gang sensed a strange premonition. It was as if her continued existence would end up spoiling his grand plans. 9th Miss must be teasing. This subordinate wouldn't dare not recognize young Miss. However, as per head madam's command, this subordinate has no choice but to offend young Miss by handing young Miss over to 6th Mississippi. As Wu Gang spoke, Yun Wu happened to catch a faint glimmer of murderous intent lurking in the depths of his eyes. He extended his hand and seized her. Cold light flashed in Yun Wu's eyes. She moved to break out of his grasp, but Wu Gang seemed to have been waiting for her to do that. He channeled a flow of insidious dark energy into his palm, and abruptly thrust his hand towards her chest. Yun Wu's heart shook. She attempted to dodge, but found her opponent fast and ruthless, catching her off guard. Suddenly, whoosh whoosh, 2 streaks of chilling light shot through the air, pinpointed at Wu Gang, promptly causing his expression to change. At once, he did a body flip and evaded. In the spot he had been standing, he saw 2 exquisite knives lodged deeply into the ground. If he had failed to dodge, those 2 knives would have ripped into the fatal points of his head and neck. This sudden turn of events launched all the surrounding guards into a vigilant search, but they found no trace of the perpetrator. Who? Wu Gang bellowed, his expression sinking. Then, he suddenly realized that the item he had been keeping within his sleeves was gone, and that instantly caused his expression to shift. He lowered his head and hurriedly scoured the ground before finally seeing a small, wooden box nestled in a nearby flowering shrub. It turned out he had dropped it while he was somersaulting. He hastened over, but another silhouette beat him to it. Immediately after procuring the wooden box, Yun Wu drew it into her embrace. Regardless of what the box contained, to be able to make Wu Gang and Lu Qingyue's expressions undergo such drastic changes meant the box's contents were definitely not simple. 9th Miss, please give that item back to me. Wu Gang's figure flickered and reappeared in front of Yuan, his face completely dark as he stuck out his hand, palm facing upwards. Yun Wu took a step back, smiling widely as she asked innocently, "What item?" "I don't see any items, just a mad dog barking at its master." Wu Gang's eyes chilled with murder. Since 9th Miss is oblivious, then don't blame this subordinate for personally performing a search. He stretched out his hand further, intending to pull apart her clothes as to take back his item. Yun Wu drew back a step, murderous intent in her eyes. Straight on, she was in no way his opponent, but in close combat, she dared say she had a 60% chance of success. However, before the 2 of them could do anything, whoosh whoosh whoosh, 4 streaks of cold light dashed down from the sky, and this time, the knive's origin was revealed. On the roof, there towered a fluttering white-robed figure. A head full of silver hair danced in the wind. A wicked smile adorned the man's handsome face. He clicked his tongue. Such a large crowd bullying a little girl. What a good show this is. Right after his devilish and magnetic voice sounded, Yun Wu turned her head and looked up. When she saw the man standing in the wind, her heart couldn't resist a quiver. It was the seductive man from the forest. Yun Wu's willowy brows furrowed as she wondered why he was here. The instant Long Qingxia's figure appeared, all of the women gathered in the garden fell into a sudden stupor. What a beautiful and bewitching man. Wu Gang swept the knives from the ground. As a poison expert himself, he could tell that the knives had been submerged in poison beforehand. The victim's throat would instantly be sealed, and judging from the finesse of the man's throwing, he could most definitely rival Wu Gang, if not surpass. His square face a haze of anger, Wu Gang shot a look at the silver-haired man. Who are you? You dare break into the general manor? How audacious! His angered voice had just fallen when the manor's guards surged from all sides, and an array of archers appeared out of nowhere. Shoot! Wu Gang commanded without giving the man any time to react. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless arrows fired at once, all flying in the direction of the man, but facing the onslaught of arrows, everyone present could see that the man was still smiling mischievously and not moving at all. He continued to stand in the wind, silver hair fluttering, elegant as an immortal. Below, Yun Wu saw this and scrunched her brows. Was he brain dead? At this point, what was he still trying to act elegant for? Having said that, shocked surprise then appeared in her eyes. Right before the arrows reached the man, dazzling, brilliant rays of purple brought rise to a fluctuation of odd energy. All of the arrows that came in contact with the purple light were effortlessly snapped and destroyed. Long Qingxia stood with his body enveloped in a blinding halo, emitting a sense of arrogance that suggested his disdain towards the world, an imposing manner and haughty overlook of the overarching sky. The look of rage on Wu Gang's rage contorted into one of utmost astonishment. Innate purple rank? Peak of rank 8? Even he was unable to discern the man's attribute. The man's age clearly did not surpass the early 20s either. How could that be possible? At this moment, Long Qingxia held back his imposing aura and lifted the corners of his mouth. Relax, relax. Don't raise your guards like I'm a great enemy or something. I just so happened to pass by and conveniently dropped in to watch the show. Just treat it as though I didn't exist and do whatever you want. Watch the show. Didn't exist. After Wu Gang regained his composure, he inwardly clenched his teeth. First, he had been targeted by 6 poisonous knives that were undoubtedly aimed at his vital points. Then, the man revealed his martial prowess, which just so happened to be at the peak of rank 8. Yet that man had the nerve to declare himself non-existent? All of a sudden, Lu Qingyue started to urgently command. What are you all still dawdling for? Quick chase after 9th miss and get her back here. Just then, Yun Wu had taken advantage of the courtyard's state of frightened astonishment and had long since slipped away. When Lu Qingyue came to and noticed Yun Wu's disappearance, her face had donned an expression of great panic. The small wooden box was still in Yun Wu's hands. Wu Gang turned his head and swept his gaze in the direction Yun Wu had run off to. Alas, his intention to follow after her was hindered by 2 more throwing knives. What does your excellency mean by this? Wu Gang hurriedly dodged. He looked at Long Qingxia angrily. Long Qingxia's smile was synchronously bewitching and dangerous as he laughed lightly. No meaning. You may continue. I'm merely watching the show, nothing more. Contrary to his courteous words, in his hand, he was playing with 2 iridescent throwing knives, as if to say, another step forward, and these knives will be sheathed in the pit of your stomach. Even a fool could see he was helping Yun Wu, and blatantly going out of his way to pick quarrels. Seeing Wu Gang helplessly entangled by the mysterious man, and Yun Wu's silhouette about to vanish from sight, Lu Qingyue grit her teeth, turned around, and personally gave chase. Yun Qing'er noticed, and naturally was not going to let Yun Wu go either, so she also seized the chance and followed. When Yun Wu saw the 2 figures hot on her trail, she immediately sped up. Her experience this time made her realize that she had sorely underestimated the strength of Shinzhou Continent's martial prowess. That episode in the garden alone was enough to make her understand that if she wanted to survive in this world, the assassin skills she'd gained in her previous life was not going to suffice. Moreover, her acquired memories told her Lu Qingyue was a late-stage rank 3 practitioner, and then there was Yun Qing'er too. Just by relying on Yun Wu's current strength, it would be impossible to deal with them. With Yun Manor being so heavily guarded, escaping would prove to be difficult, and the 2 people behind her were not negligent in their pursuit either. Suddenly, something flashed in her mind. abruptly redirecting her flight to Yun Manor's forbidden grounds. Allegedly, aside from Old Master Yin, no one was permitted to enter the forbidden grounds. When Lu Qingyue and Yin Qing'er saw Yin Wu open the stone doors that led to the forbidden grounds, their expressions subconsciously changed. Great Aunt, that little slut went into the forbidden grounds. What do we do now? Lu Qingyue's eyes shone with hostility. Chase. That small wooden box Yin Wu took. Lu Qingyue had to get it back. As for the circumstances inside of the forbidden grounds, neither Lu Qingyue nor Yin Qing'er was familiar with, because everyone in the Yin family knew that every trespasser was inevitably killed. Black. Before her eyes, a stretch of utter darkness. Yin Wu's vision had always been better than most people's, but now, even she could not see anything beyond pitch black. However, just by listening to the soft sounds of footsteps, Yin Wu was able to tell that both Lu Qingyue and Yin Qing'er had already followed her in. Yin Wu thought, why not take this opportunity and assassinate them in the dark? To an assassin, darkness provided the best opportunities. Just as this thought came to mind, she heard the almost imperceptible sound of a trap mechanism activating. Her surroundings suddenly lit up until she could finally see the place was she in. It was an underground palace, its four walls crawling with a species of strange ivy. They appeared ferocious and gave off an incessant sense of eerie danger. Yin Wu was standing at the end of a long passageway, just before a turn, while at the threshold stood Lu Qingyue and Yin Qing'er. The latter paid no attention to her surroundings as she locked her gaze on Yin Wu. Yin Qing'er laughed, her eyes filled with malice and hostility. Little slut, there's nowhere to run now. She moved forward but was stopped by Lu Qingyue. Lu Qingyue looked at Yin Wu and spoke with a gentle smile. Yin Wu, as long as you hand that small wooden box over to Great Aunt, once we get out of here, Great Aunt will definitely treat you well. Hearing this, Yin Wu couldn't help but give a frigid smile. What's inside of this small wooden box? It's actually able to draw you, the head madam, into the forbidden grounds, and even attempt to curry favor with me? Very well. As long as you can answer this question of mine, it is possible for me to consider returning this box to you. What's your question? Lu Qingyue felt somewhat awkward. Who was it that poisoned me with Yin poison? Yin Wu stared at her coldly. Lu Qingyue became stupefied as a flash of surprise passed through the depths of her eyes. Cold Yin poison was an incurable Yin poison, capable of lurking in the victim's body for 15 years, while it slowly took effect. It was generally very difficult to detect. Yin Wu actually was aware of the Yin poison in her body. How was that possible? After a brief pause, Lu Qingyue recollected herself and swiftly covered up the peculiar look in her eyes. She frowned, her face a mask of doubt as she opened her mouth. Poison? What Yin poison? Great Aunt doesn't know what you're talking about. Seeing Lu Qingyue play dumb, Yin Wu laughed coldly in her heart. She extended her hand and took out the small wooden box. Looks like you don't hold this box in regard at all. In that case, I'll just destroy it. Her words fell, and she raised her hand high as if preparing to smash the box. No! Lu Qingyue cried out in alarm. Yin Wu raised the corners of her lips. Speak, who was it? Although she already had her suspicions, she knew that some things weren't as simple as they seemed. Lu Qingyue inwardly clenched her teeth, her heart full of murderous intent. If she knew this was going to happen, she would have killed this vile spawn from the very beginning. It was. Suddenly, SSSS, a frenzy of ominous, verbose noises rose. Yin Wu's heart shuddered with bad premonitions, but before she could react, an icy cold, prickling sensation swiftly swathed her wrist. Precisely, the wrist that seated the hand in possession of the small wooden box. She lowered her head and saw a rope of ivy vine coiled around her wrist. Clusters of thorns that closely resembled fangs ran along the length of the vine. Clearly, the densely packed fangs craved for her flesh. They broke through her skin and sunk deeply into her wrist, promptly drawing out a torrent of scarlet blood. This seemed to excite the vines of the surrounding four walls, causing them to begin swaying in an upwards motion. Before long, the entire underground palace was overwhelmed by the sinister, hair-raising uproar of clashing beast teeth. Surprise struck Yunwu's heart. She instinctively whipped out a dagger and forcefully swung the blade at her ivy-bound wrist. Unfortunately, the ivy vines were incredibly tough and resilient. They would rather bear her strikes than let go. And 3 more ivy vines quickly entered the fray, wrapping themselves around Yunwu's limbs and burrowing their fangs into her body. The scent of blood instantly pervaded the air. The nearby vines continued to surge upwards, acting as though something from the depths of the underground palace, something utterly terrifying, had been completely awakened. The more Yunwu struggled, the more vines wrapped around her body. Lu Qingyue and Yun Qing'er, witnesses of this scene, were both still standing at the entranceway. Yun Qing'er took step after step back as she paled and stared, horrified, at the encompassing fanged ivy vines. Great-great-aunt, what are these wretched things? Lu Qingyue was similarly frightened. She glanced at the box in Yunwu's hand, then reluctantly decided to retreat. Those may be the legendary man-eating vines. At first, we must leave this place, she stammered. Man-eating vines, a species of ferocious carnivorous plants. Legend had it that once an individual was entangled by these vines, there would be absolutely no way to pull free. Only centuries ago, man-eating vines supposedly went extinct. So why had they appeared here, within Yun Manor's forbidden grounds? Seeing the ivy vines extend their predatory, swaying claws towards them, Lu Qingyue pulled Yun Qing'er, whose legs had already gone soft from fear, and quickly fled. But before she turned to leave, murderous intent flashed in Lu Qingyue's eyes. Silently, she flicked a finger and shot a poisonous dart at the ensnared Yunwu's stomach. Since it had become temporarily impossible to retrieve the small wooden box, Lu Qingyue refused to give Yunwu even the sliver of a chance to escape the underground palace. A poisonous dart. So it really was her. Yunwu spat out a mouthful of black blood as rage smothered her heart. Lu Qingyue, just you wait. I definitely won't let you off. At the time, even in her dreams, Lu Qingyue wouldn't have expected her poisonous dart to actually save Yunwu's life. Somewhere in the remote mountains, the secluded old master, Yun suddenly sensed something that caused his expression to change into one of shock. Damn, which bastard intruded the forbidden grounds? Right as his angered curse fell, his cross-legged figure rose and charged out of the desolate cavern he was in, extremely worried and anxious, as he hurried back to the imperial capital, where Yun Manor resided. There, the second Lu Qingyue exited the forbidden grounds, she ordered for the entrance to be closed off. She proceeded to spread alleged news, claiming that the ninth miss had truly met her demise after she trespassed the forbidden grounds and met with misfortune. Within the underground palace, the ivy vines that had originally been wrapped around Yunwu were now huddled together on the ground, trembling. As it turned out, Lu Qingyue's poisonous dart had stimulated the poison lurking within Yunwu's body, and the vines that had wanted to suck her dry were instead killed by the poison. It was quite ironic. Yunwu was still preoccupied with the agonizing torment caused by the poison when she felt something curl around her ankles, dragging her into the depths of the underground palace. She wanted to resist, but she could only see darkness before her, and that darkness soon invaded her consciousness. So cold it was intolerable. So hot it was unbearable. The dual assault of hot and cold abruptly tugged Yunwu out from the abyss of unconsciousness. The moment she came to, her expression changed, and she instantly felt her legs weaken from shock. She saw a gigantic man-eating vine thrashing around the underground palace confines, threateningly baring its fangs at her, while an enormous python lazed on the side. The python resembled a lofty mountain, its forked tongue flickering out again and again as it hissed, its lantern-sized, forest green eyes locked fixedly on her in the way one would stare at food. Being preyed on. This was already her second time experiencing it. Taking a moment, Yunwu scrutinized her surroundings and circumstances, whereupon goosebumps flooded her skin. Even though she was calmer than most individuals, she was still somewhat scared out of her wits. After all, laid out before her was an extremely spacious underground space with walls layered in man-eating vines, a motley python, and more importantly, she was right between them, immersed in a pool of magma. It was a scorching hot magma pool, yet she felt both hot and cold. This was caused by the battle between the magma and the Yin poison inside of her body. Were they trying to detoxify her? It made sense, seeing the poison in her body had killed several man-eating vines, so they wouldn't have dared to just eat her without ridding the poison first. However, very soon, Yin Wu's expression once again shifted. She felt like her heart was about to jump out of her throat, because she realized she was wrong. These wretched things, why would they be so kind as to help detoxify her? Yin Wu reckoned they were actually offering her up as a sacrifice, and that the object or being of their worship was within this very magma pool. She dared to make such a bleak claim because beneath her feet, she felt the slow stirrings of a silken creature. Damn! She blanched and immediately wanted to climb out of the magma pool. The giant python and man-eating vines hissed threateningly. Then, whoosh! A colossus creature suddenly flew out of the magma pool, followed by a resonating dragon's roar. When the creature appeared, the nearby python and the man-eating vines all obediently bowed their heads, as though to welcome their king, making for quite a strange sight. Ha ha ha! This prince has been imprisoned for hundreds of years, and deprived of human flesh for eons. This time, my vassals, you have done well. The crimson dragon cackled, its drool dripping down to the ground. The beast, clearly in a buoyant mood, eyed Yin Wu with a terrifying gaze. The giant python and the man-eating vines seemed pleased by the crimson dragon's praise, for they began to hissing in delight. Meanwhile, in the magma pool, when Yin Wu caught sight of the crimson dragon, her expression turned a bit unsightly. She completely ignored the dragon's excitement, because her own sense of crisis was crying out. A peculiar passage of information flashed through her mind, further darkening her expression. The Dragon Clan's 8th prince, the Red Fire Dragon, fire attribute valiant offense. Ill-tempered with an inherent love for slaughter, the Red Fire Dragon is a blithely gluttonous beast, and thus one year, it launched an expedition of unruly massacre. Humans serve as the Red Fire Dragon's primary food source, though it bears a preference for females. After surrendering to a summoner from the Yin family, the Red Fire Dragon was subjected to imprisonment within Yin Manor's forbidden grounds. Yin Wu honestly didn't know why her mind was capable of providing her this sort of information. But if everything it said was true, then her situation. Old geezer, quick, do me a favor. Save me, ah. At this point, the only person who came to mind was her savior from Beast Forest, that old necklace spirit. After all, he was able to manipulate a ray of light to reduce a group of lousy beasts to dust, meaning his strength was irrefutable. Brat, it's not that I don't want to help you, it's that I'm also helpless. I am a sacred relic spirit, but your body is lifeless, so there is no way for us to form a spiritual contract. An elderly voice spoke in her mind, but without waiting for him to finish rambling, Yin Wu cut in with gritted teeth. What about last time? Make an exception. Wait until I get out of here. I'll definitely revive my body and form a contract with you. Right now, saving my life is more important. This time, before she could finish, the Red Fire Dragon opened its mouth and descended, intending on swallowing her whole. Bang! A ray of black light suddenly burst from Yin Wu's chest, bringing about an imposing surge of energy that spread through the underground chamber. The Red Fire Dragon's body was immediately knocked aside. Sorcery? Ah, what is the relationship between a human like you and the Sorceress clan? The dragon's beastly pupils flushed with rage, and a roar set off in the chamber. It was as if he had met the murderer of his kin. Quick, into the magma. The elderly voice hurriedly urged. Yin Wu wasted no time sucking in a breath and sinking into the magma, upon which a fiery, oppressive sensation assaulted her. It pressed down on her in a way that felt dozens times worse than being in normal water. Fortunately, a faint black light soon shrouded her body and alleviated the pressure. If you don't want to become the Red Fire Dragon's snack, then you must quickly locate and procure its Dragon Fire Pearl. It can be used as blackmail. The pearl is in the deepest part of the magma pool. The old spirit sent mentally. Without an ounce of hesitation, Yin Wu kicked her feet, momentarily resembling a fish as she quickly swam towards the depths of the magma pool. The magma pool was much larger than what she had imagined. Before her eyes was a sea of red. She couldn't see the dragonfire pearl at all, and could only continue to traverse further into the recesses of the magma pool. The deeper she went, the stronger the oppression. The temperature rose, as if warning her that if she continued, she would be cooked alive. Hurry, the red fire dragon is coming back. Yin Wu turned her head, and could vaguely make out the red fire dragon's roaring form, just before it dove into the magma pool. Her heartbeat quickened, and she kicked harder, propelling straight into the magma abyss. At the bottom of the pool, she saw a ball of flame with a white pearl as its core. That should be the dragonfire pearl. She drew near, braving the magma's oppression, and resolutely headed for the flame. Not far behind her, a roar sounded. When the red fire dragon caught on to Yin Wu's plan, its eyes reddened with anger, and with a flick of its tail, it dove for Yin Wu. The same instant she was hit, she grabbed a hold of the pearl. In but a split second, fiery pain enveloped her hands. The charring process was alarmingly quick. She could visibly see the greater part of her hands turn black. Pain. The soul-excruciating pain made her feel like both her hands and soul were being incinerated. Nonetheless, she refused to release the pearl because she knew if she did, she would be left utterly defenseless. The red fire dragon brought her to the face of death, but she was unwilling, and would rather fight than surrender. Having been sent flying, while her hands were not yet fully crippled by the flames, she exploited the moment of respite to swiftly bring the pearl and its encompassing flame to her lips. "Brat, no matter what, don't," the horrified elderly voice in her mind started. But it was too late. As the palm-sized flame and the dragonfire pearl entered Yin Wu's mouth, the two entities transformed into magma and burned unbridled down her throat, flowing into her body. Instantly, she felt as though an inferno had descended upon her to consume her very being. Even with her inconceivable resilience, Yin Wu found it hard to withstand the relentless pain. An anguished cry escaped her throat as the expanse of magma suddenly began to tremble. "Brat!" The elderly voice sounded anxious. The spirit immediately summoned a thick layer of black light to wrap firmly around Yin Wu's body. He wanted to help her, but alas, he could only relieve the discomfort caused by external flames. Without a contract, it was impossible for him to assist her with sorceress magic. Moreover, Yin Wu wasn't aware that the flame she had so impetuously swallowed was the purest form of fire, nurtured by the heavens and earth themselves, Heathfire. That ball of Heathfire contained immeasurable power. If an ordinary person were to touch it with their bare hands, their hands would burn to ashes, to say nothing of swallowing it. In other words, Yin Wu's actions were nothing short of suicidal. Pain. So much pain. The agonized Yin Wu didn't even dare breathe. She could only firmly clench her teeth, stubbornly holding on to her consciousness, for otherwise, she was afraid she would really be disintegrated to ashes. Her soul and body felt like they were being incinerated, but she refused to yield, repeatedly telling herself, just bear it for a bit longer, just a bit longer. Finally, the red fire dragon registered what had happened, which successively caused its pupils shrink in towering anger. It roared, my dragonfire pearl, abominable human, return my dragonfire pearl to me. I'll tear you apart." Bearing dense, almost tangible murderous intent, the beast's ferocious claws struck out fearlessly at the barrier of black light. Bang! The clash of formidable force on both sides resulted in a turbulence, causing a disturbance to Yin Wu's unstable condition. She spat out a mouthful of black blood, feeling as though the heavens and earth were spinning around her as her body was swiftly knocked into one of the fissures within the magma pool. Her body trembled, and her eyes were momentarily blinded. Around her, the fog methodically dispersed and was replaced by a fiery sea of fire. The sea of fire enveloped her as the dragonfire pearl appeared above her head and began to gyrate. At that moment, Yin Wu realized the pain had miraculously disappeared. When she heard those words, she lifted her head, faced the empty space, and gave a cold laugh. "You little lowlife, what are you laughing about?" The voice carried with it a tinge of rage. "Me. I'm laughing at you, you desperate son of a bitch. You want someone to kneel before you that badly? Why don't you go erect a stele, gather some puppies, and allow them to worship you day and night? Yet you're here bullying me, a little girl. Why aren't you blushing? Don't you think you've lost 18 generations worth of face already? Yinwu mocked angrily, slowly rising from the ground. An area of the space shook as an aura of rage pervaded the air. Clearly, her words had angered the guardian. What a sharp tongue. Good, very good. It was at that moment, the surrounding fog grew dense, and a round of oppressive force charged at Yunwu from all four directions. Her expression changed slightly. Heavy pressure, comparable to tens of millions of gold bars, caused her internal organs to feel as though they were being crushed. She collapsed to the ground. How is it? Submit or not? Submit. Submit my ass. She spat. He wanted her to submit? In his dreams. The oppressive force increased once again, and a mouthful of blood sprayed from Yunwu's mouth. At this moment, the space between her brows began to glow with golden light, and soon after, a golden scroll suddenly materialized, floating in midair. The golden scroll fully came to view, whereupon there came a thudding sound, followed by an astonished exclamation. The Dragon Ascension Scroll? Why do you have the Dragon Ascension Scroll? You even got its approval? Dragon Ascension Scroll? Yunwu looked at the golden scroll floating before her, feeling great shock in her heart. Before her demise in her previous life, wasn't this the scroll that dog couple had wanted to take from her? In that life, the last mission she had received was to obtain this Dragon Ascension Scroll. According to legend, the Dragon Ascension Scroll contained records of all the events and treasures dating back to the dawn of chaos. The master of this scroll would become the master of the world. The original customer had paid a hefty price for her to snatch the scroll from someone else, but neither she nor that customer would have imagined that that dog couple would betray her, and that the scroll would then explode with her body. Could it be that the reason she was able to traverse to this world was due to the Dragon Ascension Scroll? Every time her mind flashed with information, that information was provided by the Dragon Ascension Scroll. Before she could finish sorting out her suspicions, the Dragon Ascension Scroll shone and lifted the oppressive force from her body. Then, the closed doors of the palace swung open. An array of golden light streaked into the Pandemonium Palace. It was the scroll. Suddenly, Yunwu was filled with a strange feeling. It was as if she had intentionally sought out and arrived at this place, as if there was not unnatural about the entire situation, and that she was here for the sole reason of claiming the Pandemonium Palace as her own. Yunwu rose to her feet and strode towards the palace doors, but suddenly, a streak of white light flashed, and then a tall, bearded man of a mighty disposition blocked the entrance. She had no choice but to halt. You again? Yunwu cursed, pissed. She didn't need him to speak to know that he was that same guardian general who had been opposing her just minutes before. Your body is dead, so even if the Dragon Ascension Scroll has granted you its approval, it's no use. You are still unqualified to enter the Pandemonium Palace. Come back when you've met the requirements, he said in an emotionless voice, but the dignified quality of it was still clear as day. This time, he didn't give Yunwu a chance to refute. He waved his hand, whipping up a strong force and mercilessly swatted her away, putting her under the impression that she was no different from a petty fly. This damn door god. Yunwu swore that once she returned, she would pluck out his beard. She reopened her eyes and winced. Her mind shook, and she swore she was watching 1,000 lifetimes worth of memories flashing before her, bewildering her ability to decipher between true and false, reality and illusion. The knots in her mind unraveled, allowing her to comprehend what had happened. Just then, she had entered her own sea of consciousness. The Dragonfire Pearl and the Ball of Hooffire had initiated the path to the Pandemonium Palace to open, and the Dragon Ascension Scroll had served as a medium. Unfortunately, her dead body had hindered her. Actually, now that she thought about it, she realized how peculiar her situation was. Her body was dead, but why was it that she was still able to function like a living person? She just couldn't figure it out. However, she quickly pushed it out of her mind. There was a more pressing matter at hand. She was pleasantly surprised to discover that the poison in her system had been dissolved into nothing, replaced by a round golden-red bead. She opted to test her luck and attempted to guide a thread of flame-like essence into her meridians, where it slowly began to spread before finally settling within her dantian. The golden-red bead absorbed the essence and started to glow with golden light. She could distinctly feel the mighty strength of a martial practitioner pulsating through her body and limbs. This caused her to consider the sneaking suspicion that the battle spirit energy contained within the golden-red bead was the genuine, authentic form cultivation energy. The essence cycled for a week before Yunwu discovered, to her astonishment, that she had reached the early stage of rank 5. It had taken Lu Qinghua 30 years to reach the 3rd rank. Feeling jubilant, Yunwu continued to cycle the essence, again and again week after week. Alas, rank 5 seemed to be her current limit. Within the vast expanse of magma, waves of black light dissipated to reveal a figure. The figure climbed out of a fissure and quickly swam up in upward strokes. Splash! Yunwu's head broke the surface of the magma pool. She sprang up and landed next to it. For the first time in this life, her body felt unspeakably light and energetic, beyond comfortable as she inhaled deeply through her nose. Unbeknownst to her, her formerly pitch-black pupils had turned an odd shade of violet. Ah! She suddenly cried out in alarm and jumped back. The red fire dragon was lying beside the magma pool, its bestial eyes staring at her with murderous rage. Human, you've finally come out. I've been waiting for you. Waiting for her? She suddenly remembered that she ate its dragonfire pearl. Yunwu cast a furtive glance at the surrounding man-eating vibes and the giant python, vaguely wondering if it was possible for her to defeat them now. She was completely unsure. Moreover, she still had the red fire dragon to deal with. Seeing the dragon's enraged state, she chuckled and hurriedly opened her mouth to gush. Brother dragon, please cease your anger. I braved hell and came out of there alive, because I wanted us to have an opportunity to talk. You know? Anything can be resolved by talking, right? I'll rip you to shreds. The best conversation is for you to spit my dragonfire pearl back up. The red fire dragon rose, flashing its fangs and claws at her. Yunwu furrowed her brows. Even if you tore me to shreds, it's no use. The truth is, I've already digested your dragonfire pearl. She glanced at the entranceway. If she went all out and charged towards it, would she be able to escape? The answer arrived soon enough. The red fire dragon raised its head and spat out a ball of flame, promptly sealing off her only portal of escape. Since you digested my dragonfire pearl, I'll digest you. Your life is mine. The red fire dragon roared angrily and swiped its claws at Yunwu. Unable to retreat, she hollered, Old man, save me. A ray of black light shot from her chest. Bang! The two forces clashed. Releasing a roar of pain, the red fire dragon was once again knocked back. Brat, you'll have to resolve this yourself. I've already assisted you enough. If I go on like this, I'll end up evoking heaven's wrath. In her mind, the elderly voice said helplessly. Yunwu couldn't help but get distracted by his words. Heaven's wrath? That serious? All things are bound by certain sets of rules, and the consequences of breaking them are unthinkable. Brat, you were able to swallow the dragonfire pearl and the Huthfire without evoking any serious repercussions. That means you are quite fortuitous, but your body has fallen, yet you are still alive. This violates the natural laws. If you manage to escape this place, remember, first and foremost, you must find a way to resurrect your body. Otherwise, even I would not be able to predict the severity of your consequences. Those words turned the corners of Yunwu's lips down. However, before she could brood on it further, the red fire dragon came charging at her again, its angry roars bouncing off the four walls of the underground palace. Human. Yunwu's expression immediately turned solemn as she watched the dragon draw near. Her eyes flashed when she sprung into the air, and her body abruptly twisted to execute a rapid flip, which successfully landed her on the unsuspecting dragon's neck. A beam of aggressive reddish-violet light shot from her dantian and enveloped her fist. She delivered a violent blow to the dragon's head. A pained roar. The maddened beast slammed its colossal body onto the ground and began to roll around wildly, trying to throw Yin Wu off its neck. Abominable human, this prince will tear you into 1,000 pieces. Yin Wu narrowed her cold eyes and grasped one of the dragon's horns tightly in one hand while pummeling his head with the other. She thundered, "I'm abominable? You're the one who's abominable. I genuinely wanted to have a conversation and resolve this peacefully, but you were unwilling and left me with no choice but to use force. You'd better cooperate or else I'll smash your family jewels." In her past life, she remembered watching a drama about a deity named Neza, who stormed into the Dragon King's palace and forcibly shattered the third Dragon Prince's family jewels. Right now, she fully intended on reenacting the scene. Strangely enough, the thought of it excited her. The red fire dragon turned out to be a fairly ruthless character. Since it couldn't throw her off by rolling, it rose and opted for slamming itself against the wall, determined to mash her into meat paste. This kind of brutality was actually quite to her liking. She activated the defensive ability that came with breaking through to the level of a rank 2 practitioner and stubbornly held fast to the horn. Her blows rained down on the dragon's head, each strike stronger than the last. Between the two of us, I'd like to see who's more ruthless. Bang! 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 The underground palace trembled with the enormous red fire dragon's assault on the wall, the impact ferocious enough to shake mountains while the dragon roared unceasingly. The underground palace had become the arena for the human and dragon's deathmatch. One by one, the man-eating vines and giant python quickly slid away, for fear of getting caught in a misfortunate tragedy. Above the ground, over 20 days ago, the earthquake that struck the manor ceased. The manor's inhabitants, who originally thought they had safely weathered through the disaster, were frightened to discover the ground shaking once more. And this time, the infuriated roar of a dragon rang out from within the forbidden grounds. The guards who were responsible for surveilling the forbidden grounds paled and almost fell to the ground in fear. A guard shouted, his voice quivering, "The demonic dragon is jostling again. I'll go report to the old master. You guys stay here." "Quick, go." The guard fled in the direction of a certain courtyard. The remaining guards each pulled out a large sword and eyed the forbidden grounds entrance, cold sweat running down their backs. As it turned out, Old Master Yin knew it would be impossible to hide the incident any further, so he had informed the imperial family about the forbidden grounds and the dragon trapped within it. Numerous rumors were spread. The demonic dragon's evil deeds from countless years ago were also divulged to the public and traveled far and wide, shaking the hearts of those who learned about it. The imperial family had dispatched a host of guards to watch over the forbidden grounds, all to prevent the demonic dragon from fleeing. Those who resided within Yun Manor were the most anxious and worried of all. One mistake could lead to the demonic dragon's escape, and they would undoubtedly be the first ones to get caught in the bloodbath. After all, hundreds of years ago, the summoner who had sealed the dragon belonged to the Yun family. Demon dragons were one of the most valiant beasts in existence, and they held grudges to an extreme. A quiet courtyard existed in the northernmost region of the manor. Yun Qi and the three elders were relaxed and preparing to have a game of chess. Suddenly, the ground shook, and a dragon roared. The four immediately blanched. What exactly is that demonic dragon up to? In just 1 month, it has caused 2 disturbances. Surely the demonic dragon doesn't mean to break out? The 3 white-bearded elders all had sour looks on their faces. The first elder rose from his seat and frowned. Impossible. In the Forbidden Grounds that year, the Yun Manor summoner set up a millennium detention contract, and there remain 300 more years to it. Even if that demonic dragon is bold and valiant, for it to attempt a breakout is unlikely. Perhaps someone entered the Forbidden Grounds and provoked the demonic dragon, the second elder suggested coldly. At the side, Yin Qi frowned. No matter who, they still belong to the Yin family. Let us stop guessing and go take a look for ourselves. If push comes to pull, we can join forces to suppress it. In his heart, Yin Qi knew that the trespasser was likely his own 9th granddaughter, And if she was the reason for the demonic dragon's awakening, then he would be labeled as a traitor to the family. The three elders knew this too, but just as Yun Qi said, they all belonged to the Yun family, and now was not the time to condemn each other. Before the guards reached the courtyard with their report, the four had already set off for the forbidden grounds. The mass of guards waiting outside of the manor also swarmed in. Those inside were oblivious to the situation outside, and those outside were just as oblivious to the situation inside. Bang! Another forceful collision. Finally, the enormous dragon's body fell from the air. Its wings looked as though they were merely fluttering. Yunwu's condition was not much better. Her clothes were in tatters, and some fresh wounds were dripping with blood. Not to mention, this was her state even with the defensive ability protecting her. By comparison, in terms of injuries, the dragon was actually in a much more advantageous position, since its scales were on par with a set of invulnerable armor. At most, the impact of slamming against the wall numerous times had left a few red marks. Ironically, it had knocked itself into confusion, which was the reason for its cessation. Yunwu gasped for air. Likewise, she had lost the strength to continue punching. Nonetheless, she kept her grip on the dragon's neck fur and panted. "Let's take a break. I need to catch my breath." I've never met a human as difficult as you before." The red fire dragon gnashed its teeth. She smiled and laughed at its words. "I'll have to thank you for your praise. However, I've never met a dragon as ruthless as you before either. I appreciate that." Actually, in both lives, she had only ever met this one dragon. The red fire dragon snorted, but its mood had improved a bit. I don't care for your appreciation. Don't think I'll let you off just because you said a few flattering words." The dragon's change of self-address from this prince to I also gave away its change in attitude. Yunwu didn't mind its haughty response. She asked curiously, "Seriously though, brother dragon, why are you locked up in this place? From what I see, you're mighty and formidable, so how come this little basement is able to confine you?" Even though the Dragon Ascension Scroll had informed her that the dragon was sealed up by a summoner belonging to the manor, she didn't quite understand the strength of summoners. How was the Yun summoner able to imprison the red fire dragon for so long? At the mention of the summoner, the beast's anger rose again. If it weren't for that loathsome Yun Tianxia's petty schemes, how could I have been tricked into this place? That loathsome Yun Tianxia. When I get out of here, he'll be the first one I shred and devour. The amount of wrath it felt could practically be heard in the grating of its fangs. Alas, after so long, the red fire dragon's target had probably already died and disintegrated into ashes. Why wait for that day to come, huh? Why not just charge out today? Yunwu continued to probe cautiously. The red fire dragon's eyes burned with anger. Its words startled her. "You think I don't want to charge out of here? That Yun Tianxian used a Millennium Contract spell to bind me to this underground palace. Even if I managed to reduce this place to shambles, I would still have to wait out the full 1,000 years. A Millennium Contract? Was that the strength of a summoner?" Her acquired memories had told her that summoners were now figures of legend. This was because hundreds of years had already passed without a single summoner appearing on the continent. Therefore, quite a few believed that summoners were only legendary figures now. Despite that, on this day, Yunwu felt itchy fervor in her heart, along with yearning. If I can become a summoner then. Just as that aspiration crossed her mind, an elderly voice spoke. "Brat, it's not impossible for you to become a summoner, but the prerequisite is that your body. Are you saying that as long as I can revive my body, I can become a summoner?" she inquired, her heart beating faster as her eyes brightened. "I didn't say it's guaranteed, just that there's a possibility. If there's a possibility, then it's possible, and if it's possible, then it's guaranteed. Even if it was impossible, she would make it possible. But first she needed to get out of the underground palace." She was struck by a sudden burst of inspiration. She stretched out her hand and knocked the red fire dragon on the head. "Hey, brother dragon, if I manage to get you out of here, how will you repay me?" "You can get me out of here?" The dragon's head lifted. "But of course, It was incapable of seeing Yunwu, as she was seated directly atop its head. The dragon chuckled. Little girl, it's not that I'm looking down on you, but you aren't even enough to fill the crevices between my teeth. And yet you want to break me out? Don't kid. You don't need to know if I can do it or not. You just need to answer. Do you want to leave this place? Yunwu asked, knocking the dragon's head again. The red fire dragon turned its head, its voice full of dissatisfaction. Of course I do. Who would want to stay in this hellhole? She immediately smiled. Then let me out. Let you out. The red fire dragon widened its eyes. Its gloomy voice rumbled, and Yunwu raised her hand to once again cuff it on its head. I'll say, why are you so stubborn? You've said it yourself. I'm not even enough to fill the crevices between your teeth. So why don't you just let me go? If you don't let me go, how will I be able to become a summoner and come back to rescue you? The dragon roared angrily. You human, do you think I'm stupid? If I let you go, would you still return? You swallowed my dragonfire pearl. And you think I'll let you go? Yunwu's face sunk, and she forcibly smacked the dragon. You're not a stupid dragon. You're clearly a slow-witted one. Why do you think I was able to survive after consuming your dragonfire pearl? Why do you think I'm able to use sorceress magic? Why do you think I'm able to sit on you and fight you? If I didn't have the ability, why would I be here bantering with you? She ended her words with yet another smack. The red fire dragon flew into a fit of rage and turned over on its back. If you keep hitting my head, I'll eat you up. Its threat was unceremoniously dismissed by Yunwu, who clenched her open palm into a fist and smashed it down heavily as she retorted sharply. Then do you believe me when I say that this little miss will beat you until you see stars? You? Me? What about me? You're just a dim-witted dragon who knew only to grow a long body and neglected your brain. No wonder you've been trapped here for hundreds of years. If you want to remain confined in here, then go ahead and continue squabbling. If you want to escape, then let me out now so I can become a summoner sooner. Then I'll come back to disperse the spell and restore your freedom. Maybe it was due to her air of overbearing confidence, or perhaps it was the prospects contained within her words. Nonetheless, the dragon was moved, and anticipation revved up its bestial heart. The red fire dragon, though still skeptical, paused. You're saying all that yourself, but who's to say you're reliable? I swear by my title as a forthcoming summoner, that I will return to free you from this underground palace. You should know that summoners never go back on their words. Frankly, she was just bullshitting, but she actually wasn't wrong. For a summoner to swear anything by their revered title was equivalent to them signing a sworn contract. If the summoner failed to fulfill the promise, then they would experience terrible backlash. Once the promise was made, it would be impossible to go back on it. Therefore, summoners were generally extremely vigilant about making promises. Of course, how could the current Yunwu have known this? At the moment, fooling the dragon was her top priority. The red fire dragon hesitated for a moment before opening its mouth. All right, since you swore by your title as a forthcoming summoner, this prince will believe you. However, know that if you dare lie to this prince, the day this prince is released is the day you and your family die a graveless death. In all honesty, Yunwu didn't give a damn about the life or death of the Yun family, but faced with her current situation, she could only nod unhesitantly. Rest assured. But before that, you'll have to help me out a little. With a teeny tiny favor. I just need to borrow a bit of your blood. She entreated, thinking, the red fire dragon's blood should be superior to the blood of the beasts from the beast forest, right? Though she was still unsure of how to revive her fleshly body, drinking beast blood would at least be able to preserve it. And thus, with the red fire dragon's reluctant consent, she laid down on its body and drank her fill before standing up, whereupon the dragon exclaimed, Are you a human or not? It eyed her suspiciously as she wiped her mouth of its blood. What do you think? You're a monster. Despite its words, the red fire dragon's doubtful attitude towards her capabilities had actually been slightly subsided. She shrugged, just about to answer when, hiss. At the underground palace entrance, The man-eating vines and giant pythons suddenly began to writhe around restlessly. A trespasser? The red fire dragon excitedly rolled over and sprung up into the air. That's excellent. You cannot be eaten. But now another trespasser has delivered themselves to my doorsteps. If weren't for the confines, the beast probably would have charged ahead already. A trespasser? Yunwu raised her eyebrows, jumped off the dragon, and made her way towards the entrance, which essentially doubled as the exit. Hey little girl, remember your promise. Don't worry. Wait for my return. She waved without looking back and left with a flourish, her departure executed in a cool manner. However, she didn't expect that right after walking out, she would see the man-eating vines and a different giant python thoroughly thrashed upon the ground, accompanied by the sight of a man slowly strolling towards her. She was speechless. Him, clad in boundless white robes, paired with a head of drifting silver hair, and a breathtaking countenance. His inky black eyes, however, carried not allure, but the cold light of a killer, making it seem as though the art and path of killing solely belonged to him. Yunwu stood there dazed, sensing the bone-chilling aura around him as she watched him near, step by step. Little thing, after this, I really need to keep a closer eye on you. A tinge of huskiness mingled with the magnetic quality of his voice. In the blink of an eye, she was pulled into his embrace, to which she reacted by throwing her palms out to forcefully push him away. She quickly fell back a few steps, frowning. Why are you here? The bloodthirstiness that existed in the recesses of Long Qingxia's eyes was replaced by leisurely charm. His lips curved upwards. Heard my woman got thrown into the forbidden grounds. As your husband, how could I not enter too? Though it looks like I worried for nothing. Hearing him, Yunwu felt ineffably offended. This man, does he have to be so indecent every time? Nearby, more man-eating vines and giant pythons began to gather. Let's get out of here first, Long Qingxia said, gathering her into his arms. Ignoring her protests, he turned and took her out of the forbidden grounds. She wanted to break out his grasp, but seeing the corpses of man-eating vines and giant pythons littered on the ground, she was involuntarily stumped by the realization that he had killed his way into the forbidden grounds, just for the purpose of finding her. Why? Why would he do that? Long Qingxia held her tightly, and the unfamiliar scent of his presence tickled her senses, causing her heart to start to involuntarily race, as a warm sensation washed over her. But she didn't dare let herself linger on the nostalgia. The warmth was like an enthralling poison. It served only to blur one's mind and judgment. A poison that she was all too familiar with. In her previous life, the betrayal of her lover had shattered her heart to pieces. In this life, she was without a heart. Long Qingxia carried Yunwu through the underground palace, which turned out to be something like a labyrinth, weaving in and out of the dark passageways until the familiar entranceway came into sight, and that was when she noticed just how familiar the man seemed with the underground palace. You've been here before? She tilted her head and asked him suspiciously, to which he laughed charmingly and shrugged. Nope, but I was able to familiarize myself with the paths after I wandered around in here for a few days. Wandered around in here for a few days? She turned her head sideways and sized him up. Then suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, she spotted a small wooden box. It was the very box she had wrestled away from Wu Gang that one day. Yunwu threw off Long Qingxia's arms and made her way towards the box, picked it up, and walked back. He glanced at it and inquired curiously, "What's that?" Though when his gaze swept over the peculiar patterns on the box, she was able to catch the conspicuous glint in his eyes. Not sure. It belongs to Wu Gang. I thought it looked unpleasant, so I snatched it. She explained vaguely, after seeing her reach out to open the box, only to find it locked from the inside. Long Qingxia took it for inspection. The structure of this wooden box is one that requires a special key to unlock, though the mauve wood it was carved from is quite rare in itself. In Zhou Dynasty as a whole, I'm afraid only a few exceptional figures of the imperial family would have access to mauve wood. Looks like this Wu Gang is rather extraordinary, he remarked, handing the box back. The imperial family? Yunwu furrowed her brows and thought back to Lu Qingyue. who had been both parts frantic and desperate in her attempts to reclaim the seemingly ordinary box. But it made no sense, for Lu Qingyue resided perennially within the manor, and hardly ever stepped out to attend imperial banquets, and the sort even if she did. The public setting would make it hard for her to develop a relationship with anyone from the imperial family. Could be that Lu Qingyue had someone standing behind her, someone who bore designs to control the Yun manor through her? And perhaps Yin Wu's poisoner wasn't Lu Qingyue, but the person behind Lu Qingyue? If that was the case, then why would that person take the pains to spend over 10 years in hiding, opting to slowly spread Yin poison throughout her body, rather than just directly killing her? Moreover, she was nothing more than the daughter of a neglected concubine, so why the fuss? However, regardless of the reason and the accuracy of Yin Wu's speculations, the matter was undeniably a complicated one. Got silver needles or anything similar? She lifted her eyes and glanced at Long Qingxia. She wanted silver needles? He arched an eyebrow, but refrained from asking questions as he manifested a thin needle on the palm of his hand. I've only got this. Take a look and see if it's acceptable. Acceptable. The corners of her lips tilted up slightly. She took the needle and pushed it into the opening of the box's inner lock. A special key? As far as she was concerned, the lock was child's play at best. In her past life, she had grown up learning a myriad of skills. She was capable of working out Germany's most preeminent and elaborate anti-explosion lock within a mere 10 minutes, let alone this measly inner lock. 10 seconds. A faint click could be heard, and the inner lock cracked open, causing Long Qingxia's eyebrows to rise. His eyes shone as he peered into Yin Wu's unfathomable eyes, and his lips curved into a smile. Who would have expected a little pipsqueak like you to have that up your sleeve? You've really surprised your husband. Yin Wu frowned and shot him a displeased look. Stop calling yourself my husband all the time. You might not feel embarrassed, but I feel like I'm being disgraced. Disgraced? He was stunned. Look at yourself. Your age makes it that I should be calling you uncle. She mocked with distaste, though in reality, despite her current body being that of a 15-year-old adolescence, she had lived till 28 in her past life. With just a glance, she could tell that the man before her was younger than what she had been. He appeared 25 at most. But in any case, she just wanted to stop him from self-proclaiming himself as her husband and taking advantage of her. The main reason, however, was because she felt that this man was much too dangerous. His eyes flashed darkly, and then he gave an alluring laugh. Little pipsqueak, so you dislike your husband being older? But don't you know that in Shenzhou continent, breaking through the 9 practitioner ranks to master practitioner would enable a 100-year surplus to one's lifespan, and that breaking through from master practitioner to martial sage would add 300? An exalted sage would receive 500 more years. Although your husband is 25 this year, it wouldn't be hard for me to break through and become a master practitioner. Little pipsqueak, your husband hasn't even started to pick at you yet. But you, on the other hand, you're already planning to abandon me? At the age of 25, he had reached the peak of rank 8, and was only a step away from rank 9. One could only imagine how astonishing his innate talent was. Unfortunately, an outsider like Yin Wu was wholly ignorant of the so-called innate talent of Shenzhou continent. Still, she was a bit surprised by the news that longevity could be extended. In her mind, most people lived within the range of 70 to 80 years, and few were able to live beyond 100. It had never crossed her mind that in Shenzhou continent, cultivation could prolong one's life. Didn't that mean as long as one kept cultivating, they could keep living? Yun Wu was not yet aware of the fact that the further along one gets on their cultivation path, the more difficult it becomes. The later stages would require one to experience great fortune before a breakthrough could be made. As the matter of fact, countless practitioners would find themselves stuck at one bottleneck for their entire lifetime, unable to break through. Few would be able to follow Yun Wu's line of thought. After all, if her reasoning were the case, then wouldn't Shenzhou continent have become a land of immortals already? She pursed her lips and gave Long Qingxia a contemptuous look. I don't feel like talking to you any longer, so just keep your mouth clean. With that said, she completely ignored him and turned her attention to the box. It opened to reveal nothing but a sheepskin parchment that was flattened beneath a block of translucent jade, and a totem. No words were visible on the latter. She reached out to grab the block of jade, but a larger hand beat her to it. You! Yunwu scowled and snapped her head up, just about to say something, but the man's icy-cold countenance caused whatever she intended to say to die in her throat. This expression of his was a first. You recognize this, she stated. It wasn't a question. Pushing down the turmoil in his heart, Long Qingxia unfurled his fingers to reveal the character that had appeared when a light was shown through the jade. Meaning? Yunwu knit her brows. An exclusive jade talisman of the sorceress clan, was the relatively cold answer. Sorceress clan? She couldn't help but think of her necklace. It seemed to be a sacred relic of the sorceress clan. What is this about? First, it's the imperial family, then it's the sorceress clan. Does this have anything to do with me? Long Qingxia stealthily concealed the chill in his eyes and stretched out a hand to retrieve the sheepskin parchment. But as he examined it, his expression changed again, albeit only slightly. Nonetheless, anything that was capable of making his expression fall was surely beyond ordinary. With an eyebrow raised, she asked, "What's that? Is it something related to the sorceress clan again?" Judging from his reactions, she reckoned he had some grievances against the sorceress clan. Otherwise, his devilish composure wouldn't have been shaken. This one has nothing to do with the sorceress clan, but rather your future. He cast her an ominous look. Related to her future? What is it? Let me see. Curiously, she accepted the small sheepskin parchment and swept her gaze over it, quickly picking up on the eccentric nature of the character. She couldn't understand it fully, but the lower portion of the character displayed an incomplete map. A portion of a map? She lifted her attention and asked with uncertainty. Long Qingxia stared at her as he responded. To be precise, it is a treasure map. Treasure map? She looked over the sheepskin parchment a few more times, shrugged and said indifferently, "Even if it's a treasure map, what of it? What does it have to do with my future?" Based on previous experience, she knew that although a treasure map sounded exciting, once its existence became known, a reign of terror and bloodbath would follow. Therefore, she truly didn't have any interest in braving the weather to find whatever treasure the map promised. Wealth was something that came and went. However, if she knew that the treasures mentioned on the map weren't just pearls and gold, she wouldn't have disregarded it. When Long Qingxia heard her words, he chuckled affectionately and rubbed her head. In this world, I'm afraid only a little pipsqueak like you would be this disdainful of riches. But if I'm not wrong, then this is a fragment of the legendary Summoner Temple's treasure map. Summoner Temple? What's that? A crease appeared between her brows. Long Qingxia smiled mysteriously. It is said that the Summoner Temple is where summoners converge after they transcend to immortality. Unfortunately, throughout the endless years, summoners have begun to decline, and the Summoner Temple was closed. At this point, he paused and then continued. However, immortal might remains within the Summoner Temple, left behind by the several summoners of the olden days. If one succeeds in entering and inheriting the power of immortal might, then one would be able to reach the sky in a single bound, become a successor, and seize the terrifying strength capable of obliterating an entire kingdom. Obliterating an entire kingdom? No matter how reserved and calm she was, Yunwu could not resist the tremor of fear that thrilled through her heart. As long as she inherited immortal might and became the successor of summoners, she could obtain that astonishing level of power? Wasn't that equivalent to having an enormous meat pie fall from the sky? When the news spread, no one in Shinjo continent would be able to contain their elation and craze. Seeing Yunwu's slightly shocked expression, Long Qingxia smiled gently and rubbed her head again, continuing, "This is merely one fragment out of 12 though, so only assembling all 12 fragments would cause the Summoner Temple to reveal itself." 12 fragments. She regained her composure and frowned as she inspected the sheepskin parchment. She was extremely moved by the prospects of the map, but she was nonetheless aware that she was holding a hot potato, especially since housekeeper Wu and Lu Qingyue both knew she was in possession of it. If they learned that she was still alive, she would most likely fall into peril before she could even get the chance to grow stronger. Thus, after she got out, she would have to kill them first. What is it you're thinking about, little pipsqueak? That's making your killing intent escalate so much. The murderous intent in her eyes did not escape Long Qingxia's notice, and that only served to further delight him. Vin, so has anyone been scared away by the age gap yet? I don't know how I feel about the age gap. She sees him as 3 years younger, but he sees her as 10 years younger, and people can live till their hundreds. I think I'm fine with that. It's not as weird as if the MC was only mentioned to be 10 years younger or something. After checking the following chapters, I will say, the word count for this novel will be doubled from now on. I thought the length of this chapter was a one-time thing, but as it turns out it's not, lol. Prior to this chapter, the average chapter length in Chinese characters was 1.7K. In this chapter and the rest will be around 3.5K. Here's a little comparison for my Xianxia readers. ISSDH has the same average, and CD has a few hundred more. Yun Wu reined in her expression and unceremoniously, but swiftly tucked the block of jade and the map fragment into her bosom, before finally sparing him a glance. Nothing. Where to? Her smooth maneuvers made him laugh helplessly, and then he prompted her to follow him. As she trailed after him, she eventually came to realize how he was able to enter the forbidden grounds. In a dark corner near the threshold, she saw a man-sized hole with an appearance akin to a cave entrance. It was likely Long Qingxia's handiwork. Only contrary to her expectations, the tunnel actually extended all the way to the back mountain, below the cliffside she had once fallen from. The distance between the forbidden grounds and the end of the tunnel could be easily inferred from the fact that they were able to continue walking for over half an hour without stopping. This man, just how long did he spend digging this tunnel? His actions, she couldn't say she felt nothing, but she couldn't afford to feel anything beyond that either. Nighttime, 3 days later, on the east side of Yin Manor, within the master chamber, Lu Qingyue was taking off her clothes, preparing for bed. Suddenly, whoosh, a silent breeze whirred in from the window, extinguishing all the lamps and lights in the room, sinking it into abrupt darkness. Lu Qingyue's brows creased, and she scoured the room with her dark gaze. Then she shifted, and a long sword appeared in her hand. Utmost caution and wariness could be seen on her face. For her to react with such keen vigilance, at figuratively, the mere rustle of leaves in the wind showed that she was an unusually guarded person. Who is it? She looked into the darkness, set on finding whoever was making trouble, if there was even such a person. However, the room was dead silent. Still, she had a bad premonition that danger was approaching. Just then, a figure leisurely walked out from the darkness. Who are you? You have the audacity to intrude this madam's room. How bold! Although Lu Qingyue spoke in a cold voice, every bit the authoritative attitude of a Yun Manor madam, she was slowly inching towards the doorway. Whoosh! A silver needle flew out and stabbed into the wood of the doorway, immediately stopping Lu Qingyue in her tracks. A gentle voice, analogous to a ghost's, brushed by her ears, laughing. Great aunt, where do you think you're going? We haven't seen each other in so long. Do you dislike me that much? Lu Qingyue froze, and surprise flickered in her eyes. Her voice trembled slightly. It's you? How are you still alive? The poisonous dart she had thrown out for good measure before leaving would have been enough to kill Yun Wu, to say nothing of the man-eating vines that were also there. Yet now what happened? Cold light shone in Yun Wu's eyes as she strolled out from the cover of darkness and curved her lips. That just goes to say, I wasn't meant to die that day, so tonight, you will take my place. At her words, Lu Qingyue's body trembled, but immediately after, her eyes flashed with murderous light, and killing intent swathed her heart. You think a little good-for-nothing like yourself is qualified to speak such words? You'd better be sensible and hand that small wooden box back to me. Then, seeing we belong to the same family, I'll spare you. Or else, her voice trailed off with a laugh, having made obvious her threat. If it were before, in a head-on confrontation, Yun Wu indeed wouldn't have been strong enough to face Lu Qingyue. But today, aside from her expertise in killing, she had also reached the early stage of rank 5. If she wanted to kill a third-rank practitioner like Lu Qingyue, it would be as easy as turning her hand. Alas, Lu Qingyue still believed Yun Wu was a good-for-nothing. Yun Wu gave a sardonic smile, looked at Lu Qingyue as though she was looking at a retard, and said disdainfully, "Family? So you're actually thick-skinned enough to use that word? Well, aren't you just laughable? You're nothing more than someone else's dog, a dog who takes herself too seriously. If I don't return the wooden box to you, then I'm afraid I wouldn't be the only one wanting your life. That master of yours would want to take your lousy life too. Am I right? Someone with a life as cheap as yours. You really think you're worthy of calling yourself my kin?" Yun Wu's sharp, knife-like words caused Lu Qingyue to bristle with anger. "Shut your mouth. A good-for-nothing slut like you is unqualified to talk about my master. Let me tell you, my master." Then she blanched and glared at Yun Wu. You little slut, you tricked me." Lu Qingyue wasn't too dumb. When infuriated, she was able to immediately react and stop herself from revealing any more. Yun Wu's eyes darkened, and she gave Lu Qingyue a sideways glance. "Oh, looks like the one who entrusted you with the task of poisoning me was indeed your master. You don't need to know about that. But since you've unexpectedly figured out what you weren't supposed to know, you won't be alive for much longer." Frigid killing intent surged within her eyes as she lifted her hand, enveloped it in yellow battle spirit 1, and in a flash, sent a long sword towards Yun Wu's heart. Yun Wu's eyes flared, and she curled her hand into a fist. Her body emitted dazzling magenta light as she met Lu Qingyue's attack with her own. Bang! The long sword broke, subsequently causing Lu Qingyue's eyes to quickly widen and fill with astonishment and dismay. Unfortunately, before she could speak, Yun Wu's dark silhouette had already reached her side, striking a chill to Lu Qingyue's heart. "Speak, who is your master?" Yun Wu held the broken end of the sword between two fingers as she pressed it firmly against Lu Qingyue's smooth throat. At this moment, Lu Qingyue was completely frightened. Magenta-colored battle spirit. From the ancient times to now, there had never been a magenta innate color before. The instant Yun Wu made her move, she made it known to Lu Qingyue that Yun Wu was on a much higher level of strength. How was this possible? Within the short span of a month, the incurably poisoned good-for-nothing had survived the man-eating vines of the Forbidden Grounds, and came out capable of utilizing battle spirit. Could it be the Forbidden Grounds? How could you have such power? Hearing Lu Qingyue's stunned voice, Yun Wu laughed coldly. "That, I'll have to thank you for. However, if you insist on refusing to answer my question, I wouldn't mind letting that daughter of yours into the Forbidden Grounds to have a taste. I can assure the man-eating vines and numerous giant pythons will torment her, until even her bones will cease to exist." The last part of what she said revealed that within the Forbidden Grounds, there were not only man-eating vines, but also pythons. Lu Qingyue paled. "No, you can't do that. She's your blood sister. You're both of the Yin family." Yun Wu snickered. "Blood sister? Lu Qingyue, do you hear yourself right now? That day, when I was tossed into the Crown Prince's resting chamber, and killed by my so-called blood sister's whip and knives, did you ever think that I'm of the Yin family? That I'm also their blood sister?" Her sudden icy laugh sent endless tremors through Lu Qingyue's heart. Because in it, she sensed the towering killing intent of someone who would stop at no cost to pay back those who had hurt her. It wasn't me who threw you into the Crown Prince's chamber. You can't." A weapon shot through the air. Chilling light, quick as lightning, flew in through the window, causing Yun Wu's expression to fall. She could do nothing but dodge the attack. Lu Qingyue, on the other hand, failed to do so. The dagger pierced through her head, and the impact pushed her body back and pinned her corpse to the back wall. If Yun Wu hadn't dodged, that knife would have penetrated through her brain first, followed by Lu Qingyue's. What a swift and ferocious attack. The perpetrator was definitely stronger than her. She flipped her hand over and manifested 3 needles, each coated with highly toxic poison, and sent them in the direction of the attack. No movements. That person left already? She wasn't sure. But she was able to confirm one thing. Lu Qingyue wasn't the only one in the manor who wanted her life. In the end, just how many people were hidden within the general manor of the Yun family, and how many secrets did it hold? Yunwu glanced at Lu Qingyue, who had her eyes open till death. There was no trace of compassion in Yunwu's bottomless orbs. Instead, her lips lifted into a bloodthirsty sneer. Even if that person hadn't intervened, I would have killed her anyway. Looking at the situation now, the matter with the wooden box could no longer be concealed. In that case, Yunwu would like to see just who was hiding behind the scenes, wanting to end her life. One day, she would tear everything up by its roots. The next morning, a scream suddenly sounded from the east wing of the manor. Before long, a panic-stricken figure emerged from the master chamber, her face blanched with terror. "Third miss, what's wrong?" The guards hurriedly rushed into the courtyard. But upon seeing Yun Lingshui too holding a blood-stained knife, dragging her blood-soaked attire against the ground as she crawled out of the doorway, the guards all froze in place. "What's the matter? Why is it so noisy this early in the morning?" Fifth Madam Lu Qinshui III, who was located nearby, rushed into the courtyard and saw the blood-stained Yun Lingshui. Lu Qinshui's expression flickered, and she sounded concerned as she asked, "Lingshui, what happened to you?" It seemed as though Yun Lingshui had gone through something terrifying. Her eyes were dull, and her body trembled. "No, it wasn't me, I didn't kill." All of a sudden, an alarmed voice cried out, "Fifth Madam, look." Everyone present looked over, and they all gasped. They saw Lu Qingyue's corpse hanging inside the master chamber, her two eyes wide open, staring at them in a way that suggested she had died a grievous death. "The head madam is dead." Nobody knew who said it, but once the words were out, the scene erupted into chaos and fear. The guards quickly ran out of the room and went straight for old Master Yun's meditation terrace. Meditation terrace. Flustered footsteps could be heard approaching from afar. Yun Qi's eyebrows knit together. He had given instructions, making it clear that unless something big happened, nobody was allowed to interrupt his meditation. Yet so early in the morning, footsteps seemed to be getting louder and louder, and he even heard a frantic cry. He was forced to open his eyes, stand up, and walk to the entrance. The door was just opened when the guard outside spoke in a trembling voice. "Old Master, the head madam was murdered." "What murder? Speak clearly." Yun Qi stepped out into the courtyard, frowning. The guard immediately reported the happenings of the East Wing. "Earlier this morning, I heard the third miss screaming, and when I rushed into the courtyard, I saw the third miss crawling out of the master chamber, holding a bloodied knife, her body completely covered in blood. And the head madam looked like she had been slashed several times over with a knife, dripping with blood. She was dead." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.